Welcome to episode 8 of the Pod Couple.
The long-awaited episode 8.
You can call us the Lazarus Couple because we are back from the dead.
Yeah.
People had given up on it. I don't really know.
I almost did.
Hey, look, I mean, it's not as if there's some long, sordid history of Kyle and Steve projects starting out hot and then collapsing.
No, this is really an anomaly. We always follow through on everything we've ever done. And anybody that knows us knows that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty widely recognized.
That's why you can listen to our radio play about a police detective getting involved in a porn star murder.
You will be able to listen to it someday.
Someday.
See, it's not that we don't finish things, it's just that we haven't finished everything yet.
Yeah, and we just reprioritize. Like the podcast has become the main focus. So everything else can just sit.
Yeah, when you have literally tens of fans asking you to do another podcast,
you owe them.
Yeah, there's definitely an obligation.
When you can name them all, it's like it feels really personal. So you got to get it out there.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing. We're getting it out there. We're back. We're sorry we were off for a couple of weeks, but life intervenes. Sometimes some servers go down. Sometimes some explosive diarrhea gets in the way. Mm-hmm. These things happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Sometimes they happen all over your living room floor.
Yeah.
And
don't get a dog in an apartment complex would be like my advice. Like never have a dog if you can't have a doggy door. That's something I should have thought of.
It is something you should have thought of. And something else that our listeners should think of is subscribing to this podcast. I know usually we bury the subscription message usually about 90 minutes in, but we're going to go ahead and do it up top. So,
damn, Kyle, a couple weeks off and you're back with a vengeance.
I know.
Laser focus.
Trying to be a professional here or something. But listen, so if you are listening to this and you like it, you should subscribe to it. You can subscribe on iTunes or, say, Stitcher or Blueberry, even though no one seems to have ever heard of that, but it is a podcasting service. You can also now subscribe on YouTube. So check us out on YouTube. There's no video content. You just stare at our logo, but they're on there if that's an easier way for you to consume it. So anyway, lots of options. You can also get it directly from our website, which is now thepodcouple.com. So definitely, you have many ways to get it. No excuses not to. Of course.
I mean, a good excuse would be like if you don't want to do it.
Yeah, or if you hate the sound of Steve's voice.
Which a lot of people do.
Yeah, I'm assuming you would.
You, for one.
Yeah.
It's a huge mistake.
I don't know why I chose you as my podcasting partner.
It's like diarrhea all over the microphone.
I think there actually might be a spot. Well, we'll try to avoid that here as we move forward. But yeah, let's move forward.
I always felt like this podcast wasn't scatological enough. So
no,
I'm
definitely.
glad we can push it forward in that direction. Speaking of quick bursts. It's time for some quick hits, right?
That's right. The segues are back. The tortured segues are back. You know you missed them, and here they are. So yeah, quick hits. We have only done one segment of quick hits because then we went off the air for a long time, a long 2 weeks. But we're back. Do you have any quick hits this week, Steve?
I forgot that we were doing that since we only did it the one time.
So you had a whole 3 weeks to prepare. And
yeah, that's basically the way I work. I remembered outside though. I did think of something. I saw that recently the AV Club, which is a fine online periodical.
Yes.
If you could call it that, they released a list of the worst critically panned actors, and so they qualified that with saying, they had to have a movie that made over $50 million. They had to have made a movie in the last 5 years. There were some there, and then they're calling me. They said no, you can't call it a periodical when it's online. You stupid son of a bitch! It's just an online magazine. So I was wondering, they did the worst actors, and they also did the highest critically acclaimed actors. What's your guess for the worst critical failure of an actor who's still pretty rich?
Well, I actually saw this article, so I know what the answer is.
Damn it!
I might have guessed him. I think I probably actually would have guessed
Sandler.
Yeah, Sandler.
I thought that's what I guessed.
And he's basically
number 2.
Yeah, and it makes the reason why the number 1 guy, who's Rob Schneider, let's not keep the suspense going any longer. But and obviously the reason that he is number 1 is because he's been in a bunch of Adam Sandler movies. So
yeah, but he doesn't have Punch Drunk Love to boost his number up. That's like really the only thing that saves Sandler at all, right?
Right. Yeah, nice tie into the director series, which we'll be finishing up this week as we discuss Paul Thomas Anderson's Inherent Vice. But that's coming up a little later. So, yeah, did you have any other takeaways from that list that you wanted?
I just thought it was interesting how they, in the article, they went on to talk about how basically, horror movies, like dramas, are generally across the board more well received by critics, and comedies and horrors are generally more panned by critics. And it's interesting when you take that into account. Why do you think it's skewed that way?
Well, I actually think that comedies are the hardest movies to make. I think to make a good comedy, like a really good comedy, is extremely difficult, especially because it's maybe not that hard to just make something that gets cheap laughs, where you kind of string a bunch of gags together.
Are you telling me Scary Movie 4 isn't a masterpiece, pal?
Right. Like you'll watch Scary Movie 4, you'll probably have some laughs, even if you're not into that kind of humor. There'll still be 5 or 6 chuckle moments in it, and the gags will be there. But yeah, it's just stringing together gags is not the hardest thing in the world. But to make a movie that really works as an entire movie and is really funny, but still has like plot and characters and all those things that are developed, I think is just an incredible challenge, and really much harder than making a strong drama, in my opinion.
Yeah,
because how many can you name? I mean, name
a
right
funny
now,
movie. I don't know,
like
Annie Hall.
No, I'm saying name like 5 off the top of your head movies that really worked.
Annie Hall, Manhattan.
Name it. Anything that wasn't done by Woody Allen?
Scary Movie 3? No, you're right, man. That's difficult. I mean, I'm a bit on the spot, but it does seem like...
I think some of the Farrelly Brothers movies would fall into that.
And even, like, my favorite comedy movies are still not really... Like, I love Anchorman, but it's pretty difficult to call that, an actual movie. It's more just like a series of sketches.
Right. Yeah. And there's definitely movies that are successful like that, and they're enjoyable, but you can see why they're not necessarily at the top of a critic's list.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Well, I think it's interesting that you decide to structure your quick hit in the form of a question, because I am actually doing the same thing. So here is my question for you. I actually have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is...
Don't be geography.
What is the capital?
Damn it.
If you had to guess, what percentage of Republicans do you think earn more than $250,000 a year?
Oh God. What percentage of people earn more than $250,000 a year?
Are you asking me that question?
Can I ask that?
You can ask it, but I'm not going to tell you the answer.
Okay, well, let's say 4%?
You think 4%?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's actually a pretty reasonable guess. It's still way high, but
of course it is.
But when they did a survey of this, and the answer the Americans came up with on average on the survey was 38% of Republicans earn more than $250,000 a year. That's apparently what Americans think. Of course, only 1.5% of Americans even have incomes that high in the entire country. Not all of them are Republicans, of course. So there's definitely, the fact that you were at 4, redounds to your credit in terms of having at least a somewhat realistic view.
38%.
Yeah. So
just balling out of control.
Yeah. It's like,
there's no economic crisis whatsoever.
Do you really think 4 out of 10 people are making over $250,000 a year?
Yeah.
Or 4 out of 10 Republicans anyway, I guess, which could be like, if you think Republicans are whatever, I guess 35% of the population, that's still, it seems like you would know a lot of very wealthy people if that were the case. So on the other side of the aisle, how many Democrats do you think are gay or lesbian?
Shoot. 4%.
So 4% of Democrats are gay or lesbian. Yeah. So again, very reasonable by you, but very much not reasonable by the American people.
What did they say? 78?
Yeah. 105% of Democrats are gay or lesbian. Yeah. So no, 33% was the
guess.
Was the guess. Yeah. Literally a third of
All my friends.
Yeah. And of course, once again, fewer than 4% of Americans identify as gay, lesbian, or transgender. Yet there's certainly a perception.
So these were Republicans that were polled.
Well, it's the funny thing is, I mean, I think that what they found is the perceptions were definitely held by the opposite parties for the most part. It was, Democrat. I mean, both parties were wrong, but Democrats definitely tended to be much more skewed in the terms of how wealthy they thought Republicans were, and of course, Republicans were much more skewed in how gay they thought
Democrats were.
Yeah. So anyway.
And where was that? Where'd you get that information?
Oh, I just made it all up.
Okay.
None of that is actually documented. No,
That's meta.
Yeah.
Like all this misinformation, and you just came up with it.
Yeah. This was actually this was an article published on Vox, I think, but it wasn't. I'm trying to see where the actual survey was done by, and I'm not seeing it off the top of my head. And I don't think it's good podcasting to just, have me.
Yeah. Let's just say it was the Gallup poll.
So
there, moving on.
Yeah. So it was a reputable polling agency, I'm sure. So, and I think that's really all I have. I know we had all this time to come up with some quick hits, but we got a lot of other stuff to get to.
Yeah, we sure do.
And they are called quick hits for a reason.
Yeah, because they only take like 30 minutes.
So, so let's do some TV. This sort of worked out good in terms of serendipity that we did end up waiting because we were going to talk about Girls and Togetherness. Several episodes had happened by the time we were going to do this podcast a couple weeks ago, but now we actually can talk about not only the entire season of Togetherness because it just ended on Sunday, but the entire series of Togetherness because
it just ended on Sunday.
Right. Very, very sadly, HBO has chosen not to renew one of my favorite shows on television right now, Togetherness. So
yeah, that's a quick hit to my nuts. That's what it feels like, man.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts now that you're all caught up?
On the whole show, the cancellation, or
all of it.
Everything.
Just tell me everything that you think in your brain ever.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, so here's the one of the reasons it's such a bummer to me, as I was watching these last several episodes, I mean, really starting back with the episode called Advanced Pretend, I believe.
Yeah.
Which was one of my favorite episodes.
Of the series.
Yeah, right.
For sure.
And this is the episode that immediately follows the character, Mark Duplass's character of, why can't I think of his name?
Oh, his name's Mark. No, I don't know. I can't remember it either.
His name is Duplass. But anyway, his character finding out that Melanie Linsky's character, Michelle, has been cheating on him. And the last thing we see, we literally just see him finding out and throwing up on the previous episode. And then this episode starts with him running away into a park, essentially being chased by Alex. And then everything that happens thereafter as they end up making this sort of very hasty trip to Detroit, which is their hometown where they grew up, and so on and so forth. But anyway, as I'm watching this show, and over the course, not just that episode, but all these episodes, one thing that was struck me is like, these characters are us, like these people, and this is why I think why the show.
I throw up all the time when people tell me news. So yeah.
Yeah, I told you we're doing this podcast. You threw up all over me. So that was preferable to, having explosive diarrhea all over me, I guess.
But yeah. Keeping it classy for the podcast. Welcome back, guys. It's diarrhea and vomit.
So anyway, but yeah, these characters are really they're us, you know. They're so relatable in the sense that maybe these exact things haven't happened to you, but these types of things have happened,
sure,
you know, to us, and I think to
even the ridiculous things like the idea of staging Dune as a puppet show is like not out of the realm of possibility of something that we would do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I think we probably would have done that next year had they not done it on the show.
Yeah, now it just feels like old hat.
Yeah, it feels like you kind of derivative, you know. But you know and the reactions they have, the way the characters react to each other to these situations, maybe you wouldn't react in the exact same way, but your reaction would be in that general area, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the reasons why I like it, because it just feels so real. It feels like these people are my friends. You know, if they're not myself, they're my friends. And if I haven't been through these things myself, I've seen my friends go through these situations. And I mean, so it resonates so strongly for that reason.
Yeah, they got the whole honesty in like being a bunch of screw ups. Right, but still being endearing, you know? That's a hard thing to do. It's like you like all of those characters, even though they make horrible mistakes all the time.
Right. And, yeah, I mean, and the mistakes, too, they're easy to see how those mistakes be made, too. I mean, say they're horrible mistakes, but it's not like, and yeah, I mean, sometimes they're bad decisions, but you can see how it would be easy to make those decisions if you were in that
they're
same
organic,
position.
right?
Right, exactly. But it's, you know, this one of the things I love about the show so much too is the little moments, the little character moments that say so much and also just add this level of authenticity. Like there is a scene in that Advanced Pretend where Michelle meets Mark Duplass, which I still can't remember his name,
right.
At like a Starbucks or something. And
Jay? Is his name Jay?
No.
Oh, Jay Duplass. Why does that sound right?
That is his brother.
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I play the idiot pretty well.
I'm a little slow to catch up here, Steve. But yeah, no, they meet at the Starbucks, and she notices his ring is gone. You know, and that's totally something Delaney would do, for example, you know? So, and you can tell, not only does she notice it, but it kills her, you know? And they don't make a big point of it. It's just, she sees it, you see it in her face, and she kind of says, "Oh, you're not wearing a ring?" And then you can just see her dying inside. And that's such a nice touch.
Definitely helped along by the fact that she's a great actress.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's been obviously very good in other things, but I think this show really gave her another level, or showed she has another gear, and should definitely be hired by
all of them. Hire all those people.
Right, absolutely. There's another scene in that same episode when Alex and Mark Duplass are at the party in Detroit, and they kind of stumble into this party, and Mark Duplass starts flirting with his girl, and Alex is just seeing it. You know, again, there's no dialogue. It's just, you're just seeing his reaction as he's like going, okay, I see something's happening here. I recognize that it probably shouldn't be happening, but I don't really know what I can do about it. And it's all that, you know, just in his eyes and the recognition there. And, you know, we've all been in that situation.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen a friend going down a path.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to throw your body in front of it, but it's not really your place to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
This idea of really exploring like long time friendships and, you know, not getting in someone's way, but you need to get in someone's way sometimes. And that's a really close bond that you don't see on a lot of shows, because it would just be, you know, on a lot of shows, it would be just he immediately does something, he immediately acts, or he immediately ignores it, and there's not that conflict happening, like you said, in those small moments. That Togetherness really nailed that sense of these people know each other, these people are friends, these people are authentic,
right?
You know,
yeah, they're real people, you know, reacting in real ways, not just reacting to the dictates of the plot or the screenplay. God, it's such a bummer that HBO. I mean, the HBO would cancel it because, like, couldn't they have taken like 1/10 of the music budget for vinyl and just funded another season? Like, doesn't HBO have like more money?
I feel like you could have got 5 more seasons out of that. It's like, how much does Togetherness cost? It can't cost anything. Right. You know, no one's flying. There's no dragon in it.
Exactly. Like, yeah, can they? Yeah, like the dragon budget for Game of Thrones could probably fund another 10 seasons.
Yeah, and it's not like this is a weird thing. Did you read into that at all? Because HBO's never been about. From what I've always known, like, things sometimes get bad ratings and they just keep them on the air, you know, because it's premier television and
right.
they'll service those little very specific markets. So what happened, man?
I don't know. I would like to know more about HBO's behind the scenes process, because you're right. I mean, they've had several very low rated shows they kept on the air for a long time. I know that Bored to Death, I think, was literally watched by like 12 people.
Yeah, I was one of them.
Right. And
I know. We used to call each other after we saw an episode. I'd be like, hey, can you believe this is still on?
You have a Skype conference. You can all fit on one screen. Yeah. So, but they kept that on for like 5 seasons or something. So I don't know if HBO is feeling the crunch a little bit because there are these other HBO model type, premium television outlets now.
Can we just blame this all on Netflix?
I suppose we can, but I mean, it's not just Netflix, but obviously Hulu and all these things are trying to get into that game. And so maybe the idea is we're not the only premium television outlet in town anymore, so we can't afford to just leave stuff on that literally nobody's watching. And I don't know. I mean, one of the things I've seen kind of bandied about is this idea that Togetherness was too small, too small stakes, too small of plot lines or whatever. But I don't know, man. I just don't. I mean, yeah, the world is not at stake. It's not saving the world or anything. But
yeah, most people aren't Ray Donovan, though.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's obviously you want to watch things watch all kinds of things that take you out, things with dragons and monsters and zombies and all that. But to really nail a show on that level like they did consistently is rare enough that right. I think it justifies Togetherness being on. I mean, I know there's like a lot of sort of that, sad calm. You've got like You're the Worst. You got those kinds of shows that occupy that space, but
how many of those are being done well? I mean, really, like,
I mean, You're the Worst is being done well, but right. Still, it's like, okay, 2.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Girls we're going to talk about, it probably falls into that category. Sure. And whatever you think about that, but it's there's not a lot of, like I said, I feel like there's way more of the the world is ending, or if it's not the world ending, it's still, it's about a murder or whatever, the life and death kind of situations. Like, can't you get your fill of that from any of the other 1,000 shows that are on television? Like, this is something that does occupy a bit of a unique space, and that it's dealing with real everyday problems of real everyday people that you could actually relate to, at least as like a 30-something white guy. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
But here's the problem, Kyle, is none of those characters are the devil taking a vacation on Earth and helping a detective, a very sexy detective, solve crimes.
Maybe they could have worked that in. Maybe Alex can be revealed to not
that
to be...
That was Mark's character. Lucifer.
Maybe Alex could be revealed to not just be playing a vampire, but to actually be a vampire. That's why he was so good at it.
Damn it! They should have brought that in earlier.
They could have saved it. They could have gotten that note from the
network.
Do
you think it still has the possibility of being saved? That's my other question. Yeah. And here's the thing with this show, because the finale was disappointing to me as a series finale. As a season finale, it would have been fine.
Right.
But as a series finale, it felt real bad. Obviously, they didn't reshoot it. Like, they found out they were canceled. They didn't go back and try to adjust it or anything.
Do you know?
It was already in the can.
Do you know that you actually read that? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure did. Because after I saw it, I was like, what the hell? So I had to look into it. But do you think, so I figured this show would be easily wrapped up with like one more season. It's not the kind of show that needs to be on for 10 seasons.
Right.
They could easily tie everything up, with one more season. And is there a chance you think that might go to Hulu? Or we're living in like the best time ever for shows to be resurrected.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's great, that there is certainly an opportunity in the way that there has not been in the past, and I certainly wouldn't put it out of the realm of a possibility for that to happen. But the one thing that I think might sort of militate against that is that they do have a relationship with HBO. I know they've got that show Animals on HBO, which they are involved with, and some other, I think they maybe have some other projects in the works that they're at least producing or something. So possibly HBO would frown on that, on them taking this property to another place. I also don't know what kind of legal structure is in place as far as HBO's ownership of it. Yeah. And so I obviously don't know the business side of it. So whether that's a possibility from a sort of legal business standpoint, I don't know. But
plus, I guess with the whole Community debacle, the Community, essentially like bankrupting, the Yahoo screen program, just destroying it. Maybe people will be a little more hesitant to resurrect shows.
Well, I don't think we'll see it on Yahoo screen by any.
Well, you'll never see anything on that again. It's funny. You can just say one show broke it.
You'll never see anything on it again. Nor did you see anything on it before.
Dude,
Community.
I couldn't try to. Did you ever try to watch it on Yahoo screen? It just never loaded ever, not once.
Did you try to watch Community on Yahoo screen?
Yeah,
I did, and actually, it was fine for me.
It was fine for you.
But I never watched anything else on Yahoo screen, nor did anyone else on the planet. I'm pretty sure. So, but yeah, but no, hopefully, there's something where they can work something out. HBO can sell it to Hulu or whatever, and make something happen, because that would be great. I actually think they have a deal. Maybe they have a deal in place with Netflix too. So I don't know whether it's to make some movies or something. So maybe they could shift it over.
Yeah, they have quite a few movies, Duplass Brothers movies, on Netflix. So it does stand to reason that they have some kind of arrangement. Maybe they just do a Togetherness movie, wrap it all up with a movie.
Yeah,
possibility.
Yeah, I mean,
there you go. Are you listening? Are you listening, Hollywood? Are you listening, Duplass? Let's tweet at the Duplass brothers. I'm sure they haven't thought of this. Brilliant idea.
Yeah. Two filmmakers probably never crossed their minds to make a movie. No. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether.
Hey, we loved your show. Just because we can't remember your characters' names.
Brett.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's Brett.
All right, good.
We remembered your name, so just make a fucking movie. Tweet. How hard is that? Yeah, no, I mean, I did hear an interview with them after the first season, and they really were gushing about how much they love these characters, and they're so invested in these characters and their journey and whatever. So,
you gotta love a character to be a producer and a writer for a show and write yourself in like a full Monty scene. You're like willing to hang dong. Like you don't have to do that.
But you want to.
Well, yeah.
So I mean, I think that they probably would like to continue it. I mean, unless they've changed their minds in between season 1 and season 2, maybe the process of making season 2 was not as enjoyable for them, although it didn't show in terms of the end product, I don't think. I thought it was, the last episode was, I think even as a season finale, was weaker than
not great.
Yeah, so it was a little disappointing, but there's still good moments. One of the things that probably bothered me the most was the way that Brett and Michelle got back together was a little too easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they made the best of it. I liked Brett breaking on the "Can I come home?" and that whole thing. And that definitely was touching, got me welling up a little bit, but it was still like, this can't be this easy. And, not to say that they were just going to then be hunky-dory and happy after. I'm sure they were going to deal with the fallout and the lack of trust that was going to exist and so on and so forth.
There's a wealth of material to be mined from that relationship, rushing kind of back into it too soon, which would have been great. The episodes seem to have like pacing problems. I felt like they spent too much time on the kids in the school storyline, and then everything else felt rushed. Like Not so much with Joe Schmo and Amanda Peet.
Alex?
Yes, Alex. And so just kind of a kiss out of nowhere, classic romantic comedy sort of situation. And then they cut out. That's fine. But definitely with the Mark Duplass and Jade Duplass getting back together.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a weird curveball to have an incest angle.
They said they didn't change anything for the last episode. Unbelievable.
So, one question I have for you, obviously part of the plot line here over these last several episodes has been Brett getting involved with the girl that he drove home on his Uber.
Yeah, that chick from
route.
Orange is the New Black.
Yeah. And who it took me a while to place. I literally had to look it up because I'm like, I know I've seen it in something. Yeah. Right.
That's what Casey did.
But as far as that how that all went down and everything, my question for you is, do you feel that Brett is less culpable than Michelle? Like,
well, of course he is.
Okay.
It's not even a question, man. Come on. She messed up first. Then you give when that happens, then the other person gets a pass.
Get a jail free card.
Yeah, you get like a hall pass or whatever.
Right. So
that always works out all the time in real life, man. For everybody. Just so that you know.
Okay.
If you're thinking of trying it, get off the fence and do it. Yeah. That's what I say.
If your spouse has cheated on you, just go out there and get you some. It will definitely repair your marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No repercussions. No blowback from that at all, folks.
So
trust me, I'm not a doctor.
It only took like 2 episodes, and she took him back. So obviously, that's how it would work in real life too.
So do you think? So last title of the last episode. There we go. English is for the kids.
Yes.
Do you think that they would have come back together if they were just married without the children? Do you think that was a big motivating factor?
Yeah.
I mean, would they even have gotten back together if their daughter hadn't broken both her arms?
Probably not. So again, if you're out there listening, if you're having marital troubles, just
try to push a kid down as hard as you can.
Try to break your children's limbs, and that is another surefire way to save a marriage.
Yeah, and if you're one of the 38% super wealthy Republicans out there, you probably don't have to try that hard. You know?
Yeah, you can at least afford the medical bills.
Sure.
So, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I tend to think that just in general, it's so much easier to walk away from any relationship, right? If you don't have kids, because that's always the hardest thing. I mean, that's the thing that you're going. I mean, you can split up your possessions and pretty much be out, if you don't have kids. But if you got kids, you're going to be in a relationship of some kind forever. And so it's just a matter of whether that relationship is going to be a marriage or two divorced people who continue to have to, especially when you have young kids. I mean, that means you've got, over a decade ahead of you of having a different kind of relationship. And so for sure, I think it makes it much more difficult and gives you extra incentive, like in their case, to see if you can make it work, and get past some of those things that maybe you wouldn't let slide if you weren't, if you didn't have the children at stake. So
that's it, ladies. Trap your man with a kid. You scared he's leaving? Go get knocked up.
Trap your man.
Doesn't have to be his.
Trap your man with a kid. If he cheats on you, cheat right back, and then take that kid that you trapped him with and shove him off a teeter totter. That's
how togetherness ends.
The master plan. So you're glad you have us back here in the Pod Couple. We are licensed therapists, licensed by
the internet.
Yes. And so, that's something you can take to the bank. So I guess I don't have anything else on togetherness. Do you want to move on?
Yeah, we can talk about girls, man. I will say that definitely check out the show now that you can watch the whole thing. Get your hands on it as soon as possible. It is great, and it is with a heavy heart that we say farewell. Togetherness, you will be missed.
Yes, absolutely well said. So, girls, is a show that has definitely gotten more than 2 seasons. And it's a show that this season, I think, as it started, maybe we both had questioned whether
we should still be watching it.
Yeah, or whether it should be continuing.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say, my feeling is, having seen this season, that yes, it should. I have actually enjoyed this season a lot more than I expected to, and maybe it's a little bit of lowered expectations, but I don't know. I think that there's been a lot of interesting things in this season. I think they've taken some things in some new directions. They've explored some characters in ways that they haven't done, at least in several seasons. It reminds me more of the early seasons, I guess. I feel like it's somewhat of a return to form after a couple of seasons that
particularly
were more stuck in neutral. Yeah. And so, and for example, of just where I would say the show really was able to surprise me is they did an entire episode dedicated to Marnie.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was great.
Yeah, and it was like the best episode of the season. So which was absolutely shocking. I mean, when I saw it was going to be a Marnie episode, I was like, oh,
yeah,
man.
God damn it.
Yeah, maybe we just skip this one, but obviously they knew what they were doing. So
yeah, great. I'm very happy to be wrong about Girls. It's been since I said I'm not sure I need it in my life. I've been consistently wrong. It's just gotten really strong, and it's very funny.
Of course, you would say that you not sure you need girls in your life because you're a Democrat.
Exactly.
So obviously gay.
That's true. Gay and trans. I'm rocking both.
But yeah, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I'm just, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's been very funny, and it does, that same, there are flashes like Togetherness has of those the moments of real nice sort of self-awareness and characters mulling things over, the little touches, like in the most recent episode when Adam's sister, his name is Adam, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
like Mark, right. Like Mark from Togetherness and Adam.
In this case, yes, Adam Driver's character is actually
they should
Adam.
just always do that. Just always name the character as the actor's name, and I'll never forget.
Yeah.
So when Adam's sister disappears, and then he's stuck taking care of the baby, and then what's the lady? Jessa, thank you. Then Jessa is very clearly not ready to handle a baby in any way, shape, or form. It's sort of, making it all about herself, and you can see him dealing with that. And she's like, why aren't you going to come help me? And he's like, this is a baby. Why do you need more help than a baby?
Right. You're a grown up. Why do you need more? Yeah. Yeah. How good is Adam Driver?
So good, man.
I really feel like, you can see over the course of this show just how much he has grown as an actor. And obviously he's been doing other things. And certainly.
Yeah, he's not going to hurt. He's not going to hurt for work anytime soon. That's
right.
for sure.
But most notably, of course, being Kylo Ren in the new Star Wars, which is going to, probably pay for all the offbeat movies he wants to do for the next 10 years. But as far as just his level of acting ability, I think, you've seen him just raise his game season after season. And he was always the best actor on the show, but now he's like, it's like he almost doesn't belong on the show, you know? Like, he's not to say that other people aren't good, but he's just on that other plane. Sometimes you see that when, you have two actors in a scene together and you're like, oh, wow. Like there's actors and then there's,
Adam Driver.
Right. Capital A actors. And he's in that next category. So,
yeah, he was even great on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, yeah.
He hosted not too long ago. And he's just like, he's such a specific guy with such a specific voice that you think that maybe he wouldn't be the best at sketch comedy, like playing sort of different characters. He was fantastic. His comedic timing, it's gotta be just intrinsic. It's gotta be just natural. Not almost in the way that like Christopher Walken just has like this cadence that's solely his. Driver's kind of got that same thing. And it's just, God, it's a gift, man, for sure.
Like, you never know what his line, like if you just read the lines on the page, there's no way you could predict what his line reading would be. You know, he comes at it from such a interesting angle and almost such a right angle from what you would naturally think. Like, I don't think that I would deliver, probably like 99% of the time, I would deliver it differently than he does, and worse.
Yeah.
So,
It's different and it's super effective.
Right.
Like, it's not, anyone could just do a really awkward line reading.
Right.
You know, but how he manages to make it seem completely natural is really impressive, man.
So as far as one thing that now that we've said good things about girls, we can go back to picking on it.
Yes.
But obviously one thing that has not worked this season, and almost to a painful degree, is the relationship between Hannah and Fran. And it's just, I don't know why they don't feel any need to make it realistic for a second that Fran would be with her. I mean, you could see if they decide to explore the idea of Fran needing someone who's really fucked up.
Yeah.
And that he has some kind of weird...
Wait, you're caught up on girls, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But even then, you know, like that, they obviously, as you're speaking to the most recent episode where, you know, spoiler alert, but Hannah and Fran break up, but even then, I mean, he's still doesn't want to. I mean, she's literally like making him chase her through this nasty truck stop bathroom, and then running through the woods away from him, and he's still chasing after her. Like, why? Why are you chasing after her? And then when she wants to break up, he's still like, come on, like, that's not, I mean, she's basically, I'm running away from you. I don't want to be together. And he's like, and he's upset about it. Why would you be upset?
Right.
Like, at this point, you should be feeling nothing but relief.
There really is no explanation as to why he's with her at all.
Exactly.
Zero.
Like, and again, they could have explored it. They could have said, this is the kind of guy that has some weird, you know, upbringing or some kind of fetish where
he's like deeply neurotic about his super tiny penis.
Yeah, exactly. What I mean,
like anything.
Yeah, there you go. You solved it in like one note right there. Right. Just do the little subplot about his micro penis, and then we get it. But yeah, there's he seems like basically just a normal straight laced guy, more or less has his head on his shoulders and a steady job and whatever. And Hannah is this fuck up, and they just don't fit together. Like, it's not even just a matter of like that a straight laced person couldn't be with a fuck up, but all the ways in which they clash. It's like it doesn't seem like he likes anything about it. Like you can be a kind of straight laced person, but who likes someone who walks on the wild side.
Yeah.
But that doesn't ever seem to be his character, and so why they continue to push forward with that relationship. And force it without ever developing a compelling reason, it puzzles me.
I just hope they're really done, man. I have this sinking feeling that they're not, but you know, that's really the best thing that could happen. Is that's the last we see of Fran until he comes back next year when you know, she's walking down the street and now he has a beard and a Boston accent or something. You know?
Yeah. So, of course, you're referring to Marnie's ex Charlie, from the early seasons, who disappeared after, I think, like season 2 or something.
And he was never a great character.
Right.
And then he came back so strong.
Right.
With an accent, and they address it on the show.
Right.
And he just says, I always talk like this.
Right.
Like, that's fucking great, man. That really made me happy. That's the kind of weird... See, that's the thing, like... That's the thing Girls, I think, has over Togetherness. And I don't think Girls has much over Togetherness. I do prefer Togetherness as a show overall. But Girls sometimes just ventures into this very absurd space, and it tickles my funny bone.
Right. And I feel like, again, that was something they did early on that they were very good at, was just coming at you with something almost surreal. And they moved away from that. And now it seems to be back to some degree, which is one of the reasons why I've been very happy with this season and been enjoying it. And I've been enjoying, again, just the way that they have explored some of these characters that have gotten short shrift, I think, you know, mostly because so much of the focus has been on Hannah in the last couple of seasons. And now, you know, doing the Marnie episode was nice. They did an episode that was basically the Shosh episode.
Yeah.
They did touch base with some of the other characters. I would have liked to have seen one there where they stayed entirely in Japan and on Shoshana, but it was still,
Mostly her.
Yeah, mostly her. So we will.
Time travel.
Sorry about that.
I don't just blurt out time travel. I don't have some weird form of Tourette's where I just say sci-fi mechanics. I'm not like space or like dystopian future. Like we actually paused the recording in case you were wondering.
I think it would be neat if you did have that.
I just want some
Maybe
kind of Tourette's,
Yeah.
It feels like the best disease. That sounds horrible. I'm gonna stop myself right there.
No, you can keep going. I'd like to see where.
Man, no, yeah, Tourette's is awesome. Fuck, shit.
So do you want to time travel again and go back and not say that?
Well, no, warts and all, baby.
Let's
press on.
Yeah, sorry about that. We did have to take a short break so I could take a phone call from my wife telling me how excited she is to go on a date with Steve tomorrow. So,
I told you I'm going on a date with two ladies. They're both married.
I told you togetherness was relatable.
It is. Like, I am some weird substitute husband sometimes. Anytime you don't want to go do like the artsy thing, like just send Steve. He doesn't have a job.
He's available. He's awfully available.
He doesn't have a job, but don't let him around anybody with Tourette's because he's really fucking insensitive.
All right. So back to girls. So I don't know if there's just little things that I kind of noted and jotted down as I was watching these episodes. One of my favorite little funny, absurd moments was when Marnie's husband was building their extra room and he had the custom shelf for his Ray Bradbury digest. It fit perfectly. His like 5-volume Ray Bradbury digest box set and nothing else.
Yeah, that character's great, man. I hope he finds happiness with Lisa Bonet.
Yeah. Well, if you have, a chance to find happiness with somebody, it's probably Lisa Bonet.
No kidding. She looks exactly the same as she did in High Fidelity. Like,
yeah,
exactly.
Let's see what other.
I feel like in the most recent episode, the blowjob scene, the roadhead scene, I felt it was such a great comedic thing because you sort of, it was this cliche idea of, he starts swerving and then he hits the sign. But they took it that extra perfect step when they had the van fall over. Because you're sort of like, I've seen this before. And then when the van tipped sideways, I was like, that's brilliant, man. Well played, girls.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a fun bit of physicality. There were a couple of lines in the episode Queen for 2 Days where Hannah and her mother go up to some retreat, and the
lesbian retreat
that just cracked me up. One of them was, nice is a mask angry people wear to hide their inner asshole.
Yeah.
Which got a good laugh at me. I laughed like a little too hard at it, where Delaney was looking at me askance.
That's her problem, man.
Yeah. So
still looking forward to that date, though, Delaney.
Got her now. Trapped her with a baby. Wait a minute. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
And then another one was when Hannah was sort of apologizing for not having had a lesbian experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, I've kissed a girl. I went to Oberlin. I'm not a monster. As if I just love the idea that not having a lesbian experience, it more or less makes you a monster in the modern day, at least millennial.
Hannah's such an interesting character because she does sort of deliver these very witty one-liners, time and time again, showing she has like this sort of incisive personality, and then yet she's a complete dope.
Right. Maybe that's what it keeps Fran coming back.
It'd be like if you mixed Joey and Chandler from Friends into one person.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And then that person blew everybody and just was constantly flashing his vagina.
Yeah, I mean, again, maybe that's the thing that Fran, kept coming back for, was the witty rejoinders. Who knows?
Yeah, it'd be nice if they would have said something.
Yeah, I mean, they could have, maybe done one scene or something to indicate that, but too much to ask, perhaps. There was also in that episode, there was just a mention made. We never see it, of course, but a mention was made of Hannah's dad's Chris Rock impression. And I just really feel like it was a missed opportunity not to see Peter Scolari doing Chris Rock. So maybe we can circle back to that in some future episode, because I think that would be quite enjoyable.
Yeah. He's got a killer one, too. They didn't just pluck that from thin air.
The episode, it was the one right before the most recent. It's the one where Hannah recognizes that Adam and Jess are sleeping together. Did you enjoy the way that moment was played? I mean, the whole way it tied into these are, they're witnessing. Okay, let's see if I can actually speak English now. It's my turn to stumble here. But
you mean the Kitty Genovese thing?
Yeah, they did the
I thought it was framed pretty damn nicely.
Yeah, I really like that. The whole idea of witnessing and, seeing not really seeing something even when you're looking right at it. And then the way they played right into that with Hannah having that recognition.
Yeah, that was smart in the way that it's not just, a cool, like, meta thing. It's just, it makes sense.
Right.
She's out there, she's paying attention, for maybe the first time in a while, or she's in that zone. So then, of course, she would notice that. Yeah. Yeah, that was really efficient.
So good job, girls. Good job getting back to form and getting back on track and winning our hearts and minds once again.
Yeah.
So since HBO is not going to keep Togetherness on, maybe they'll do another season of Girls.
Well, they're doing another season of Girls for sure, and the next one's going to be the last one. They're self-canceling.
Okay. Well, and I actually think that feels right.
It does feel right.
I mean, because it is one of those shows that certainly, has shown its age at times, and I think they've taken these characters about as far as they can. So it'd be nice for them to now say, okay, let's have one last season to really wrap up some things and finish off some of these arcs and get these people, moving on to the next phase of their lives or whatever.
Yeah.
Because so much of that is this show, right? It's these people learning, through their 20s.
To not be girls.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
To be...
They let it go 3 more seasons and you'd have to call it like Golden Girls.
Right. Spinsters. So anyway, anything else before we move on to...
No, I think that covers it for television. Let's talk movies.
Or politics even?
Psych. Yeah.
We do politics in the B section.
I do. I've been at the Phoenix Film Festival for like the past 5 days, and I've paid so little attention to what's going on. So you'll have to educate me here, Kyle. I haven't read anything beyond a headline in the last few days. I feel really out of the loop.
Okay.
Politically speaking. So
you don't know about the military coup in the United States?
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, the one from years ago that installed all the neocons?
Yeah.
The Reagan. You're talking about Reagan and Oliver North, right?
The Reagan Revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So yeah, well, I guess, we'll kind of talk about the state of the race, I think, is a good jumping off point here. And we'll start on the Republican side where things are really starting to get interesting because...
Oh, yeah, because Cruz is actually winning.
Right. I mean, basically at this point, I think that you have to say Cruz is weirdly, even though he's still down in the delegate counts by a significant margin, is actually becoming the favorite in this race. And the reason being is it really plays into the reason I selected him as my choice. We remember back when we did our very first podcast, it was right before the Iowa caucuses, the first in the nation, of course. And I said I thought Cruz was going to come out of this whole Republican scrum, which was, like 16 guys deep, whatever, at that point in time. And I really don't want to think about 16 Republicans deep.
It's just funny that all of them make over $250,000 a year. So you could maybe see where people are getting this weird idea from.
Yeah. So, but at the time, my rationale was that he was so well organized and had such a good ground game. And what we're seeing is that is actually really paying off now in the sense that with the delegates, while Trump is winning, in the delegate count, there's the delegate count, and then there's the actual delegates themselves, who are real people who are selected in another process. Essentially what happens when people vote. And again, this is sort of a complicated thing that I don't know that everybody realizes, but they have the votes, whether it's the primaries or the caucuses, and essentially out of that process, they select basically who the delegates are going to vote for, who they're obligated to vote for, although even there, the rules vary from state to state. But for the most part, that's the idea. But then there's another separate process to select who these people are going to be. And that is where Cruz has really outmaneuvered Trump, in the sense that he has been able to get slate after slate of the delegates that are Cruz people to be the voters. Now, many of them are obligated to vote for Trump on the first ballot by rules which are currently in place. But once the first ballot is gone, then almost all of them become free agents. And so the fact that they are Cruz backers bodes very well for him if Trump can't win it on the first ballot, which is looking less and less likely. The way things are shaping up, it looks like he will most likely fall short. It still might be a close run thing. And if he can't win on the first ballot, I think it's unlikely that he, I think it's incredibly unlikely that he'll be able to win at all. I think that's really his only chance of getting the nomination. So that's the piece that is kind of interesting to see how this is played out, and how much, in some ways, it plays into that narrative that Trump has been pushing of, Washington insiders and being corrupt and, gaming the system. But those are the rules, and they have been the rules since before Donald Trump was running, long before. And the fact that Cruz knows the rules and is going to use them to his greatest advantage, I don't think is...
I think Trump's got him, man. I mean, think about it. He's a businessman. He started this whole empire with a small $1 million loan. He's
with $40 million inherited from his father.
He's got you can't run casinos and not have a long game here. So he's coming after it. Cruz can't really compete. Not really, man. Not when you think about it. Do you give any credence to this idea, or have you heard anything about Trump voters not being counted? Like in Colorado, they're saying that I've seen a little swell in the past week or so of Donald Trump supporters trying to align themselves with Sanders supporters, saying, look, now these guys, they're saying these guys can't win now. They're not being fairly counted. They're both anti-establishment, and they're sort of, that's when I feel like the Donald Trump supporters are getting really desperate, when they're trying to reach over to Sanders supporters and be like, look, this is all this stuff they're saying about Bernie, and now they're saying it about Trump, and it's not fair, and there's no real election, and your vote doesn't count. Yeah.
Look, you can argue whether the system in place is the best system or not. But the fact of the matter is that, these rules were well known. These aren't something they're making up on the spot. They've been in place for years, and if Trump was really serious about winning, he should know the rules. So, like Cruz did and has been planning, for years. So I think it's, obviously it's sour grapes. And, the other thing that's interesting is with these delegates and the Cruz putting them in place, people who are sympathetic to him, who are backers of him, that gives him great advantages, not just on the second ballot, but even on the before the first ballot. The only thing that they're obligated to do by the rules is to vote for Trump on the first ballot. Other than that, they can vote their conscience on any other ballots, and also crucially on matters of new rules, because the rules which are in place are existing from the previous convention, but they can be changed at this convention, and they always do make some minor changes every year. They're usually not really dramatic. But,
yeah, it's like the NFL.
Right, exactly. You've got your handful of rule changes now that they're going to move kickoffs back or whatever, but there's nothing in principle that stops them from doing something incredibly dramatic, such as we're going to do a motion that all delegates become super delegates on the first ballot. That's totally within the rules, or within the, this legal structure of the convention, is for them to put that forward to a vote. And if that vote passes, then everyone becomes freed up and can vote for whoever they want.
So how does this bode for the Republican Party, though? Because doesn't Trump have a better chance of beating Hillary than Cruz does? Like, so what does the Republican Party do moving forward? Do they just try to shoehorn Paul Ryan in there somehow?
Well, I think we should, let's talk about that. But to address the first question of yours, like whether Trump has a better chance than Cruz, I would say at this point, I don't know that he does. I think that, first off, I think they both have virtually no chance.
Sure.
And I think that the party establishment recognizes this, that they're trotting out a loser, basically. And so I think this is kind of the thought process of the establishment from what I've gleaned sort of between the margins here. Of course, they can't come out and say this, but is that they're like, okay, we're trotting out a loser in November either way. So would we rather trot out Trump, who will set the party back for 30 years, turn like a generation of people against the party, maybe like split the party in two, et cetera, have this stink of Trump on us, for all this time? Or would we rather trot out a guy who, while, we don't like him, is well within the traditions of a conservative politician, and in a way is sort of the perfect sacrificial lamb for them, right? Because they hate him anyway.
Yeah.
So, like, let him have his turn, let him get his ass kicked, and then he can, shut up and get out of the way, and you can try to run a more moderate candidate in 2020 and say, hey, look, we tried the super conservative guy, it didn't work, so let's go back.
Yeah, we tried the buffoon and the Zodiac killer, and neither one took. So, yeah, I wonder if they're already planning on 2020. Like, do you just, at this point, do you think that so many strategists have already said, like, fuck it, we need to focus on the next election because this one's going nowhere?
I really do think that the party elites have come to that, recognition. At least a lot of them have, because the fact of the matter is, the way the Electoral College breaks down, it's extremely difficult for any Republican to win right now. Like, even if they had a really good candidate, it would still be an uphill battle, because if just the states that have voted for Democratic for 6 straight elections in a row, if you take those states alone, and that puts a Democrat at 242 electoral votes, you need 270 to win. So that means you need, for example, just Florida and the Democrat wins, or obviously, like, there's many other combinations of swing states. We're talking about Ohio and Pennsylvania, so on and so forth. And again, there's about 20 different permutations where they can get to it. Whereas with Republicans, you basically have to win all the normal Republican states, and then you have to run the table on the swing states too. I think they can maybe lose one in there, like Nevada or something, but it almost has to be they almost have to pitch a perfect game to win. And so that's with a good candidate. And when you have a weaker candidate who's very polarizing in the way that either Trump or Cruz would be, although in slightly different ways, I feel like, the odds are so low that it's just like, why bother investing in this? Why not, let's try to keep our majorities in the House and Senate, just do our best to, do the damage control there, and then plot for 2020. And how can we springboard out of this in a way that allows us to redirect the party in a more moderate direction? Because going down this road, going down the Trump-Cruz road, is not a winning formula for the future. And I think that's...
Yeah, it's funny that you say, like, they're thinking, why bother? Because I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to be saying that on Election Day. Like, in general, there's just this sentiment here that everything's broken. The system, has devoured itself. And people who are viciously, people I know that are viciously defending Donald Trump are doing so with the knowledge that they're not going to vote. Like, the guy that they want to be president, they're saying the system's broken, and they're not going to vote for him even if it does come up. So that's the sort of, I don't know if that's rampant, but it definitely feels like people are feeling extremely disenfranchised.
You're saying there's Trump voters out there that are supporting Trump but don't want to vote for him?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Like I've had that conversation with more than one person. It's completely baffling. But, I didn't twist their arm about it. I wasn't like, your civic duty really dictates that you go out there and vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
No, it's you really can't do anything but just stand flabbergasted. Like that's not how anything gets fixed.
Yeah, and you brought up Paul Ryan as the possibility. Of course, there were a lot of indications, even from Ryan himself, and the way he's been acting in the last few weeks. He made this trip to the Middle East, and where he was going to talk with our allies in a that's not something that is typically a role of a congressman. He put out
I thought he was just working on his tan.
He put out a campaign ad that was essentially a campaign ad. It was kind of baffling because he's not running for anything right now, about himself. And so
I didn't see that. Really?
Yeah. It was like him. It was sort of like an ad designed to be like, we need to really bring the party back to its roots or whatever, kind of ostensibly about something else, but it was shot like a campaign ad for Paul Ryan. And so there was a lot of indications that maybe he was positioning himself. However, he then came out, I believe yesterday, and said, I do not want the nomination, nor will I accept it if it's offered to me. Now,
didn't he say that about Speaker of the House, though?
I don't know if he said exactly that. I don't think he was quite that explicit in saying that he would refuse it, but he definitely played coy with the Speaker of the House. And this may be the ultimate coy move here with this, and still setting himself up to be like,
yeah, guys, I can't. Right. I couldn't sing. Right. I know you're all saying I have a lovely voice, but there's no reason I would sing. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Maybe that ultimate move, especially because I think if you look at it from the standpoint of, if he does take the nomination away from the guys who've been running for a year,
that would be hilarious.
Yeah, it would be hilarious, but you could see that it would not necessarily endear him to their constituents, which do make up a large majority of the Republican Party, who you might need to vote for you in November.
Yeah, but maybe at this point you're so exhausted with the Trump circus and the cruise parade that you'll take like the most vanilla alternative you can. You know?
Well, some people, yes, but I mean, there are people who are enthusiastic Cruz and Trump supporters. I mean, like, I know it's hard to believe.
All the Trump supporters are like, how racist is this Ryan guy? Before, I just want to check. Is it like pretty racist at least?
Like, does he immediately disavow any association with the KKK, or does he kind of take his time?
Does he whistle a little Dixie beforehand?
Yeah. So I think that with that, so that might be the move to say, like, look, I didn't take it away from these guys. I literally did everything in my power to knock in the nomination, but they basically pinned me down and forced it down my throat, much like the master was forced down the pod couple's throat. I think that's probably the words. It's probably the words he'll use to reference it. But yeah, no. So that's one thing I can think of from that standpoint. But realistically, I don't see why Paul Ryan would want the nomination for the reasons that we just discussed earlier.
No, he would want it in 4 years.
Right.
Don't you think?
Yeah. Like, I mean, he's not, I mean, he's a young guy. He's got plenty of time to run. I think he's incredibly ambitious and he wants to be president. But, if you run and lose, which he almost for sure would, not just because it's very difficult for any Republican, but also because of the problem that, if he stepped in this very weird situation and tried to mount a campaign in only 3 months while trying to win over the supporters of these two people, which supporters of Trump and Cruz, who, let's face it, are by and large saying, want someone who's not a Washington insider.
Yeah.
We want something different. And he's the ultimate Washington insider.
Would you take the Speaker of the House who's who likes to lift weights and looks a bit like a president crossed with a sleepy-eyed Garfield? How about that? Was that too inside for you?
Would you take the poster boy of the establishment for an anti-establishment year? So I think that's the thing is of all the years to run, this is probably the worst for him, particularly under those circumstances. And so why would you want to run and lose and then be damaged goods if you're going to try to mount another campaign in 2020 or even 2024, which again, if he's, because it's always hard to run against the sitting president. So assuming the Democrat wins, then 2024 might be even better to bide his time. And he's again, certainly young enough to do that and to play that long game.
So handicap it for me. What do you think Cruz's chances are over Trump? What's the over-under?
I would say 75-25.
75 Cruz?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You are confident.
I am fairly confident that Trump is not going to win the nomination at this point. And I'm also incredibly confident that Trump is not going to win the election.
Yeah.
So if he does win the nomination, one of the statistics I think that drove it home for me more than any other that I've read lately, and I've read a bunch that have showed just kind of how dire his prospects would be in a general election. But the one that jumped out at me, I think more than anything, was that 47% of Republican women said they could not conceive of themselves voting for Donald Trump in a general election. So women make up half of the Republican Party. So, and if half of women could not conceive of voting for him, who knows how much that poll holds up,
right?
When you get to the election, I'm sure some would cave, but still, that's a quarter of the Republican Party who's saying that they can't imagine voting for him. And
and you step outside the Republican Party and the number skyrockets to something like 70% of all women or something like that. Or view him very favorably.
Yeah, he's set to lose women by...
That's weird because he's so charming.
He's the best with women.
He has the best women. He knows the best women. He's got women.
He's got the best words. So basically, he's set to lose women by record margins, and there's just no way you can do that and win with the rest of the way the demographics break down. You're gonna lose every other group. You'd have to win. He essentially would have to win white men by 100-0.
Yeah,
at this point, which is not going to happen. At least these
not
two,
with that attitude, Kyle.
At least these two guys will not be voting for. There you go. You lost two white men. You're done, Donald Trump.
Once again, the pod couple shaping the future,
coming to the rescue. So that's the Republican side, which is more interesting than the Democratic side, for sure, because the Democratic side has just kind of been chugging along in a bit of a holding pattern. We've had a streak of wins.
Yeah, Sanders been kicking ass and still not getting delegates.
Right. So Sanders has...
It's he's been kicking ass, but he was in a crotch kicking competition the whole time and nobody told him.
Exactly. So he has had a huge win streak as of late, but of course the win streak has mostly been in small caucus states. And so there haven't been a tremendous number of delegates at stake. And even with some big wins, he's still splitting them proportionally with Hillary. So he hasn't made up a ton of ground. And of course, next up on the docket is New York, which has a tremendous number of delegates, and Hillary is widely favored to win. Certainly, it's the state where she served as a senator and where they have their home. The Clintons have their home, and the polls have her up by usually double digits, 10 plus points in most recent polls. So, and of course, if that happens, if that holds true, it will be more or less impossible for Bernie to make up. It already is more or less impossible. the numbers, the bottom line is the math hasn't changed. The thing is, the math hasn't changed from where it was before he went on this huge win streak. And that's I think, very frustrating for Sanders supporters. But that's the same. It's the same math that we were able to game out, 2 months ago, and that's the thing about numbers.
It's a gay mount.
Yeah. I'm
2 months ago.
I'm a hardcore Democrat. I do a lot of gay mounting, like 33% of my brethren. Yeah. So no. So anyway, beyond that, I think that the Sanders supporters are certainly frustrated with the process, and it's a tough, it's kind of a tough situation. I'm not sure what Bernie's game plan is. Maybe,
he's calling right now to let you know.
You beat me to the joke, Steve. Gotta be quick on the draw with this
Sneaky
young
son of a bitch. Yeah.
whippersnapper. Yeah. So anyway, but I think that the frustration. Where was I going with this? The frustration from the Sanders supporters is it's a tough situation because I'm not sure where Bernie's head's at in this process at this point. Because you're in the race, that the odds are extremely long of being able to win, but you want to stay in it. But why? At this point, I can definitely see staying in it to continue to try to push the agenda.
Yeah,
and maybe that's.
I think that's pretty much it.
Maybe that's what he's doing, but I feel like a lot of what has come out of his campaign, and I don't know how much of this is under his control exactly, because I know these campaigns kind of take on a life of their own, and the people who are managing these campaigns, but it does still seem to be much more focused on, we want to win. We don't want to set the tone. And I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just the move you have to do if you're going to stay in it.
Yeah, maybe it's like getting down, 18-6 in a game of 3-on-3. You just start kind of trying to bomb threes all day in hopes that you catch up,
Yeah. I think that, I heard a podcast recently with two of the guys who were two of the main guys who helped run Obama's campaign in 2008. When he ran against Hillary, and they
Mark Duplass and Jay Duplass,
yes,
correct?
Yep, yeah. Exactly. They're very busy guys, very talented. But yeah, so it's actually a podcast called "Keeping It 1600," which is a lot better than ours at politics. So you can probably just listen to that, and you don't have to listen to ours anymore.
Great title too.
Yeah. But you should listen to us because, I mean, what the hell?
We're cuter. The only thing that really counts
I don't
on
know.
a podcast.
I haven't seen these guys, but we'll just assume we're better looking.
Yeah.
But so basically, one of the things they talked about was how it is a tough spot because, Hillary was in basically the reverse situation in 2008, where she was down actually less delegates than Bernie is, but it was still a point where the math was more or less impossible for her to catch up, but she just kind of kept hanging in there. And they were really annoyed because it's like, would you just get out of the goddamn race so we can move forward to the general? And so they said they totally understand where that is, but then on the other side of it, they understand, this idea that you've been competitive and you've put all this effort into it, and obviously you've raised all this money from these supporters, and you don't want to let these people down, so you kind of feel the need to play out the string that way too. So it's understandable on both sides, but yeah, I mean, the best thing I think that can come out of this is simply that the campaigns don't piss each other off so much that they're able to come together. And I don't really see it being a problem. I know people have talked about like Bernie or bust and all this stuff, and I'm sure there'll be a few people like that. But let's
be honest, Kyle, they were never going to vote in the first place.
Exactly. And yeah, if they would have slept through the voting if Bernie was a candidate. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Was the election today? But with with 2008, that campaign was much more acrimonious between Obama and Clinton than this one has been. And there were a lot of people on the Clinton side, that said they called themselves Pumas. Party Unity My Ass was the acronym. And at the end of the day, when Obama was a candidate and he was running against John McCain, they lined up and they voted, by and large. So I don't see it playing out differently this time. And certainly if you need some motivation, you have Ted Cruz or Donald Trump staring you in the face.
Yeah, that's enough.
For 4 years, and that's at least
staring you in the face. Did you know 47% of Republican women voters once got a look at Ted Cruz and then never orgasmed again? That's a Gallup poll.
Straight from the Gallup. Yeah. So, I don't know what else is going on in the world of politics. You want to talk Panama Papers?
I mean, what is there to say, really?
All right, moving on.
What if that was just my view on everything for the rest of the podcast? I mean, I guess. Whatever, Kyle. Come on. Yeah, Panama Papers. We had discussed this very briefly the other day, and you were sort of, I think we're pretty similar when it comes to the Panama Papers, just like we sort of are similar when it came to like the Snowden leaks or any of the WikiLeaks stuff. It's sort of, it wasn't surprising.
Yeah, it's definitely a matter.
Like, it's weird to, I'm never taken aback when it's like really rich people are super corrupt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's like, oh, what? Rich people are trying to hide their money and get out of paying taxes?
Yeah.
Like, that's not exactly breaking news. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that was kind of my big takeaway from it was, like, why did anyone not know this was happening? Like, it's similar to what you say with some of the Snowden stuff or whatever. It's like really just confirming what you already know. And yeah, I guess putting like face to name and all that stuff has some value, especially if it does help push the conversation towards maybe having a little tighter regulations. But, this is such a hard problem to solve, particularly with something like the Panama Papers, because basically rich people are going to find a way to hide their money. Like
bomb Panama.
Right, but if it's not Panama, it'll be somewhere else. And
Iran? Because you know what I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, we have Ted Cruz on the podcast here. What's your plan for Iran? Do you want to bomb it until the sand glows? So, actual quote from Ted Cruz.
Yep.
But, so no, I think that with this stuff, and the thing is, too, is what's happening right now is that this is mostly being facilitated by corporate attorneys. And if you put a lot of legal regulations in place to prevent it, then it just goes underground and there's sort of illegal fixers who take over the role that corporate attorneys are now serving. Is that better? Is it worse? It's kind of like drugs, It's like, do you want drug dealers doing it on the street corner, or do you want it being dispensed at a pharmacy? Maybe neither is absolutely ideal, but I don't know. Again, it's like, could we solve the problem?
Well, with what they're doing now, these corporate attorneys, do we get a cut out of any of that? Like, if they were to go underground with an illegal fixer, like you say, does that change? Does that deny?
Yeah, well, the corporate attorneys pay taxes. I mean, of course, these are the same corporate attorneys that figure out how to hide tax money. So they probably don't pay a lot of taxes, but presumably they have to at least pay some for show.
Sure.
So maybe we're getting a little bit of money from it. Yeah, I don't know. Again, like I said, I think it's one of those hard problems to solve. It's easy to say, like, oh, why don't we just stop these people from taking their money out of the country and make them pay their fair share and all that. And that sounds great. And I'm not saying I'm not for that. I'm absolutely for it. But in practice, I think that's a much harder problem to solve. Than, just to say it sounds great, but how do you go about executing that? How do you go about saying, oh, you can't move your money around in investments in other countries. You can't bank in other countries. I mean, there's a level at which, generally we have a certain level of freedom with our money and with our ability to move around our assets and things like that. And if you could maybe, it'd be a big shift basically to clamp down on that to the degree that I think would be necessary to completely stop it. And you still have the issue that, look, rich people are going to find a way to have undue influence in any system. And you see this, even when you have a system like the Soviet system that was ostensibly egalitarian, and had that kind of baked into the ideology, but you still had the party leaders who ended up accumulating the most power and the most wealth, and and had the corruption, and were able to work the system and influence the system in ways that were not available to anybody else. So it seems to be part of the human condition, I guess, is what I'm saying. And any problem that has to do with the human condition is going to be a hard one.
Yeah, for sure. It's what are you gonna do? You might as well just like put your mind towards solving racism or something.
Yeah,
like you. Actually, it would probably be easier to solve racism than to try to fix the absolute power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely thing. That's gonna be rough.
So, Panama Papers, what can you say? you kind of nailed it right out of the gate, Steve.
Yeah.
We just sort of wasted the last 5 minutes.
Look, people are evil, and people at the top sort of, they love to do this bad behavior. It's like some sort of inherent vice.
Now that is what we call a motherfucking segue. Nicely done. Finally, we it only took us like 6 episodes to nail one. But that's what you're here for, Steve. So yeah.
God damn.
So Paul Thomas Anderson, his 7th and as of yet final movie, although I'm assuming he will be making more.
Did you know that he actually has a documentary out from 2015?
Really?
I looked this up last night. Yeah, it's only like an hour long, so I think it's fair to say like we don't have to review it. It's basically the guitar player from the band Radiohead goes to India and jams with like a bunch of Indian musicians, and then Paul Thomas Anderson just filmed that. So we can leave it off the list and say we're done with PTA after Inherent Vice. I
think so. But yeah, so Inherent Vice, this was my first time seeing the film, at least seeing it in its entirety. And for you, it was time number 2?
Yes, this is the second time I watched it, and you have seen it now.
I have seen it.
So can you tell me what it's about? It's 2 times through for me, man, and it's still a head scratcher.
Thematically, or the plot, or what?
Start with the plot.
Yeah.
Which plot?
The plot is the plot's very convoluted. It's funny, as I was watching the film, and I felt, I guess, less like this the longer it went on. But certainly for the first hour or so, I was like, wow, this is like one of the best Elmore Leonard films I've ever seen. That's not an Elmore Leonard film, of course, but it really had that feel. Now, I haven't read, is it Thomas Pynchon?
Yeah,
is that the author? Is that how you pronounce it, as far as you know?
As far as I know, Pynchon.
Yeah.
Pynchon? Pynchon?
Pinchot, sure. Like Bronson Pinchot.
Yeah.
But
Thomas Bartakamus.
I have not read any of his books. Have you?
I have not, although I heard that the book this is based on was called at some point like unfilmable. You couldn't make it into a movie. It's sort of like the like Tristram Shandy or something.
Was that sort of, you think, part of the challenge for PTA that he maybe was interested in taking?
I mean, just skipping ahead a little bit, I feel like that is for sure a part of it with this dude, and it's just so interesting to me that he doesn't rest on his laurels, and he's consistently just trying to do different things, man.
Yeah.
Whether or not the result is successful, it's like he doesn't give a fuck. He wants to see if he can get the lighting the way that he wants it, and he wants to see if he can film an unfilmable book,
Yeah. That's what I got from it too. I was like, yeah, this is a guy we've seen now over the course of the last several movies who is just saying, you know what? I want to try to do this kind of film now.
Yeah.
I want to do a 90-minute Adam Sandler film.
Yeah.
So let me see. I want to do a historical epic.
I mastered the guitar. Now it's time for me to pick up a didgeridoo.
Right.
It's just whatever.
Yeah. And so, but it had that Elmore Leonard feel, had that feel of some of the better Elmore Leonard films like Jackie Brown or
Out of Sight.
Yeah. Which are, I think, probably the best 2 for sure. And, in the sense that you've got these interesting characters that are kind of bouncing off each other in weird ways, and the plot is meandering a bit, but you're being introduced to them, and you've got some drug use and like some stoners and all this kind of, but they just sort of stumble their way through the plot and then towards some kind of resolution.
Yeah, you know what it reminded me of? When I was watching it this time through, I was thinking about that book review you did of that like surfer guy who then like goes and retrieves treasure. Like
Oh yeah.
you remember like I was like, oh, are his books like this? Because I imagine that's what those books are like.
Travis McGee. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that as far as the movie itself, the thing that I've kind of come to expect from Paul Thomas Anderson is that he's always shooting for greatness.
Yeah.
And this is a film where it didn't necessarily feel like that's what he was going for. It felt like he was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just make a film where people are kind of fucking around and, you know, meandering and having some fun scenes. But like even like with The Master, which as we spoke about last time was not my favorite of his films and something that I don't think works as a whole, it still felt like he was really going for it.
Right.
In that. And I know you think it worked extremely well, but he was going for it in a way that it doesn't feel like he ever does in this film. Did you get that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is it definitely seems like, and I think perhaps Anderson has said as much, like the plot didn't really matter to him. And so that's when I say, you know, swing for the fences and hone your craft, you know, in any way you can. Like, you're just, again, to return to the music metaphor, it's like he made, you know, a great debut and a great sophomore album, and then he's just gotten into really weird, trippy, experimental stuff, you know, like the early club scene U2 after they exploded, and then they started experimenting with, you know, electronic music or whatever. He's just sort of, he just wants to do whatever he wants to do, and I do have to applaud him for that, man, because he's like, I don't care if no one sees my movie. He's like, I'm gonna, you know, me and Maya Rudolph will see it. And that's
yeah, it was fun to see her pop up in a very small role.
That's fun. Apparently, Pinchon is in the movie somewhere in a cameo.
Is he really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And he's like a famous recluse too.
So, what are the things that really worked for you in the film?
Well, the performance. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix, again, just like a fucking monster. Josh Brolin as well. It's just, it really cast, again, like Anderson always does. You know, he could have, you know, a movie with even less of a plot where it's just people all standing in one room, just like staring, and he would pick the right actors, you know, to do that. Like the Martin Short.
Owen Wilson was like, literally, I feel like that role was made for Owen Wilson. Like, I don't know, maybe it was written for him in a sense, but yeah, as soon as I saw him in that role, I'm like, oh yeah, who else would have done this? You know?
As soon as I saw him in that role, I was like, oh yeah, wow. Yeah, he was the great, and you know, a lot of as far as what else, there are some genuinely funny moments in the movie, and it is like kind of a comedy, but it's not really that funny across the board. And it reminds me of, like, when you say the Elmore Leonard thing, it strikes me as sort of this mashup between, you know, like The Big Lebowski and like some Elmore Leonard thing. Yeah, it's like it makes so much sense when you talk about noir and you talk about like this idea of like a capricious fate. Like, of course, like a stoner bumbling through is like a great vehicle for that, and you're sort of surprised you don't see that kind of hapless detective thing earlier, you know? And Lebowski definitely did it right, and this movie does it very well too, and perhaps will be much more rewarding when I've seen it like 5 times as opposed to 2. Maybe it's just one of those things that, you know, I have to be like 6 beers deep and then watch it, and like more of an altered state myself. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this is groovy, man, or whatever people say when they're having fun. But
I think that's what they say.
They say, oh yeah. But like I'm getting old, man. I can't watch a movie 5 times anymore, especially not when it's like 2.5 hours long, you know?
Yeah, it was a bit of a slog.
It was, I mean, it definitely. I did lose the plot here and there.
Yeah, I think that's by design, though. I
Yeah,
don't,
for sure, but it's still like it doesn't
help.
Yeah, it doesn't make it a great viewing experience for me. That you're like, I'm gonna purposely make this convoluted as shit.
I feel like Josh Brolin is an actor that a lot of people don't like for whatever reason.
Really? Who the hell doesn't like Josh Brolin?
I don't know. I just feel like it's something.
I'll fight those people.
All right, bring it on, Josh Brolin haters. Steve is here to defend his man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's definitely great in this film and very funny.
The
popsicle.
Yeah.
Is there's just the scene where he's working that popsicle and you just stay on the reaction shot. I mean, you see a Joaquin Phoenix peeking around the edge of the frame and watching the popsicle being filleted. And that's such a a nice piece of visual comedy. But just in general, his delivery and the way that he plays this cop who has, a lot of layers, and you could have built a movie around him.
Yeah.
You could have built a movie around his character, and it would have been a very different movie, but maybe even a better movie. Who knows? Certainly still very interesting. There's this scene where they go into a hotel. It's is it the hotel? Now I'm blanking. Of course, I watched the movie a couple weeks ago when we were originally going to do the podcast, but it's either the hotel or it's the place where Martin Short is staying, like essentially the leader of this sort of cabal of dentists that are running drugs via some Chinese junk or whatever. And anyway, did that remind you of the hotel in The Shining as an homage?
Yeah, for sure.
And I know what a big fan of Kubrick PTA is, so I thought that probably was not an accident. But I didn't know if you caught that.
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, it makes total sense. But it didn't jump out at me at the time. Although this movie does seem like perhaps it has more references to other works than some of PTA's previous stuff. Nothing's jumping to mind, but it felt like a lot of it felt borrowed.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. So this, fair to say this is not your favorite PTA movie.
No, it's not, for sure. I don't think it's anybody. Was it anybody's favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie? If you have all the other movies to choose from, it's fine if you pick one that's like not my favorite as your favorite. But is anybody going to pick Inherent Vice?
Probably not.
It's like it almost escapes like analysis because of the sort of non-existent plot. Or perhaps, this will become, I guess if people apply the same level of scrutiny that they apply to, say, like 2001, then maybe in a few years, we'll have like 10-page essays, like really breaking it down. But I kind of doubt it because the dude already said, he doesn't really care about the plot. He referenced the movie. Have you seen The Big Sleep? Yeah. That classic. He said
absolutely.
He said he was watching that and he was like, I don't know. I don't understand the plot of this movie at all. He's like, and that's when I realized plot doesn't really matter.
Well, that's a bold move.
Yeah.
Moving forward, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, but there's no way this movie is simply not going for the gold in the way that something like 2001 was, and that a lot of other Anderson movies were. So I highly doubt, as do you, that this is going to be the subject of critical essays for decades to come. But yeah, would you say it's your least favorite of the Anderson movies?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you.
Yeah, and that's it's fair. It's still good. It's still very enjoyable, and I still would want to see it again.
Right. Yeah. As we've said several other times on this podcast, even bad Paul Thomas Anderson. Not that this is bad, but the lesser Paul Thomas Anderson is certainly. Aspires to a much higher standard than most films that are made. So yeah, I wouldn't want to dissuade anyone from seeing it by any chance.
So did you write down your favorite line and scene?
I did.
Noise.
Did you?
I didn't. No, I actually did, but since we didn't do the podcast last week, I left that card at home. I can still remember my favorite line, though. Well, my favorite scene, I think. Yeah, I remember my favorite scene. My favorite scene is when the action actually starts. Like the most kind of classically noir moment is when Doc's hanging up in sort of like being tortured, and he's bound up, and he gets like the little lock pick and escapes the handcuffs, and then takes the hits the guy with the top of the toilet seat, and then he takes the gun. And my favorite line is also like in that scene, because I laughed harder at this than anybody than anything else in the movie. But it's like when it's very tense and he's trying to escape, and it's got a, you know, it's really ratcheting up the tension, and then he fires the gun, and there's that beat. And he goes, "Did I hit you?" It just sort of shouts out like the guy's going to answer back, "You got me," or something. Right. Just something about Joaquin Phoenix's delivery in that moment. Like he's so afraid, and yet it's hysterical. So that's my vote for Inherent Vice. It's kind of hard coming up with a favorite scene for the movie because there's not like the scenes don't seem as pronounced as scenes as they have in some of his previous work. I don't know if that was the same for you, but as I was watching this time through and having seen it once before, I was like, okay, make sure to keep an eye out for your favorite scene. And I was like, wait, is this still the same scene? Is this a different scene? You know, it just sort of does mess around with the pacing is a little stoned.
Yeah, I can see that. I think the two scenes that stood out for me were both similar in the sense that they were really long one takes, but without camera movement or with minimal camera movement.
Okay.
Which is obviously...
Yeah, because it doesn't really move the camera as much in this flick.
Yeah, and it doesn't move the camera as much. I feel like he has become much more steel with the camera over time, over these films, and I don't know how much of that is just, I want to see if I can do it differently, and how much of it is that he feels that those early films did it to excess, or what. I don't know where his headspace is at.
Maybe maybe it was just a pain in the ass to do all those one takes. And he's like, you know what? I did it already.
Yeah.
So
people know I can throw the camera on a dolly or use a steady cam, so I'm just going to do it still from now on. Yeah, but I think that the first of the scenes is the one where Owen Wilson and Joaquin Phoenix are sitting at a table. This is at a party.
That was a great scene.
Where he infiltrates, and Owen Wilson.
Was that helpful, listeners? Yeah. Where I just go, that scene that Kyle hasn't described at all.
What you said. All right, moving on. But they're sitting at the table, and the camera just stays on him on a two-shot. They're having a conversation. Basically, Joaquin Phoenix is trying to figure out where Owen Wilson's coming from. He's infiltrated this group. He's posing as one of them, as this kind of hippie, but he's really on the payroll of basically these big businesses that are in the pocket of, I guess, is it Nixon or Reagan? Reagan. Right? I mean, the point is the 80s, yeah. So anyway, trying to push forward the Reagan agenda or something. So it's as we said,
but Reagan just as a governor, right? At that point.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because it is 70s, right? So yeah, that's why I was thinking Nixon. Anyway, it's all convoluted. It doesn't really make a lot of sense or matter as we discussed earlier, and as even PTA apparently thinks. But whatever. But the point is, they have this really interesting conversation, and it's just great because it's just two actors working off each other, and you get to see it all happen. You know, there's no cuts, there's no moving in for close-ups. You see it kind of all in a wide, and it's just very well done, very interesting from a performance standpoint, and it just feels different from what you typically see. I mean, it's definitely shot differently, but it doesn't feel boring. It doesn't feel like, oh, he just set up the camera and walked away. You know, it still feels like it's lit and framed in a way that it's an artistic shot, but yet it lets you see all that play out in long form. So that was really good. But
and that's the point at which Joaquin Phoenix, when he's having this conversation with Wilson, sort of like dropping these coded kind of messages, you know, about his family, but they're talking about a car, but it's not really a car. Yeah, that's a great,
exactly.
great little bit of that movie.
So but then the other scene that is also a long take with minimal camera movement that I would put as my number one is when Shasta comes over and does this.
You dirty dog, Kyle. You're a dirty dog. I knew that'd be your favorite scene in the movie.
Well, look, red-blooded American male, like myself, a little little
come on,
TNA.
Man. Come on, you're letting your party down by not being gay.
I know. I'm an embarrassment to the Democratic Party with my hetero tendencies. I'll blow a dude now and again, all right, just to stay in the good graces of the party. But
that's all I'm asking.
That's all anyone can ask, Kyle. But I do like a little TNA now and again. But but it's this great scene because she strips down. I mean, the whole thing starts with the strip tease almost, and then she's slowly moving towards Doc, and then she's sliding up next to him on the couch, and then she's rubbing up against him, and then she's crawling over him. And she the whole entire time she's just giving this long monologue about this sort of pillow talk of how she has been a bad girl and so on and so forth, and it just ratchets up the tension in a very palpable way. And of course all the reactions of Joaquin Phoenix to this and seeing his inner struggle is very interesting, but and the way he finally breaks at the end of it is a great capper for the scene. So that's my number one.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good, pretty erotic scene.
Oh yeah,
definitely good. Oh, you know what other line I liked is when Benicio del Toro, the maritime lawyer, comes shows up and of course just murders it. He does sort of the Luis Guzman part for this movie. Luis Guzman couldn't be there, so they got del Toro, and he just shows up.
Is del Toro a rich man's Luis Guzman? Or?
Yeah, oh for sure, man. Yeah, absolutely. He shows up and then the Josh Brolin character says he thinks he's going to kick Joaquin Phoenix's Doc. He's going to kick Doc, and then the lawyer goes, "You're going to kick him? Oh, I think that'd be assault." It's such a dumb line, but it's so perfectly delivered, and that one stood out for me too. So where do you rate this in terms of? Is this your least favorite?
Can I do my line first?
Did you not do the line?
I did not.
Oh, you got two scenes, man. I can't keep track of everything. Okay, what's your line? Is it the kick? Did I just steal it?
Yeah, that was it. So let's move on. No, lines. What can you say? So no, my line is actually this. The sad thing is, of course, because I watched the movie a couple weeks ago, I can't even remember who said it for sure.
Okay,
I think it was Brolin, but I could be wrong. But in any case, somebody, let's say it was Josh Brolin, has just informed Joaquin Phoenix about the death of Martin Short's character. The last we had seen Martin Short, he was with Joaquin Phoenix and a couple other people in a car. They were all high out of their minds. Was it cocaine? They were doing coke.
No,
right?
Yeah.
So they're all high off of cocaine. That's the last we see. And then he Martin Short wanders off with some attractive young lady, and then he gets later on. This is revealed to Joaquin Phoenix that he has died after breaking his neck off a trampoline. Falling off a trampoline, and so the line that's delivered is, "God help us all, dentists on trampolines." So, which is just in a vacuum. I mean, God help us all, dentists on trampolines. That's all you need. It's so funny. Like I want to put that on my gravestone.
I'll make it happen.
Make it happen very soon. So that was a little ominous, Steve. So as far as movie, I agree with you. I think it's probably my least favorite of the Anderson movies, which is a little bit of a bummer to go out on that note, but
it does. But it really wets my whistle. One thing that hit me particularly when watching this one and sort of knowing it was the last one, I was just like, God, this guy's got to make another movie. That's why I found out about the documentary, because I was like, he's got to have something in like pre-production or something planned or something announced. Nope, nothing at this point. Maybe he'll do like, maybe he's going the Louis C.K. route. Where he'll just like drop a movie,
right?
And suddenly it'll be there. I'm hoping, because I need more Paul Thomas Anderson in my life. The second thing is the movie did kind of make me want to read the book. Did you have any interest in doing that after seeing it?
Yeah, I definitely would be interested in checking out either this or some other Thomas Pynchon. I kind of thought that, from what I read at some point, that this is sort of lesser Pynchon, and that there are better books out there. So
sure. Maybe
I'll look at the rankings on Amazon or whatever and try to find what are considered to be some of his more classics and check those out, because it did intrigue me to see how this would play out on the page as opposed to on the screen. The other thing I was going to say is, how excited would you be if you found out that Paul Thomas Anderson was doing like a 10-episode series for HBO?
Super excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way more excited than I am about Vinyl.
Yeah, just that does seem at this point like almost the most exciting thing a director can do, right? Like, I think Soderbergh proved that with...
He'd probably make 10 completely different fucking episodes or whatever. It would be like one story, but every episode would be totally different.
Yeah, and that would be fascinating.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think Soderbergh proved that with a Nick, which I know you still haven't seen, but you should put it on your list. And
it's a very short list. I've seen so many things.
Right.
And, I gotta just get around to that. But everything keeps coming back, ending and coming back. Jesus.
But yeah, so I think that's, like I said, I feel like that's almost the most exciting move that any director can do now. Especially a director like Anderson, who is, character driven and dialogue driven and
not afraid to take chances, and not afraid to
work outside the box.
Not afraid to be unsuccessful.
Yeah, exactly. So it does seem like almost like the best place for someone like that to be right now is television. But anyway, that was just my last parting thought there. But we're not done with movies, because we need to do another director series now that we're done with Anderson.
Yeah,
we have to select another director and do another series here starting next week. We need to let our listeners know what movie they can watch to play along with us. And so we did talk about this a little bit ahead of time, and we settled on the director being, in this case,
the Wachowski brothers. Is that right?
Is that what we settled on? That's not how I remember it.
I guess they're not brothers. The Wachowskis. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, 33% of them are trans.
Yeah, you've insulted Tourette's people. You've insulted the trans people. I know that's like 33% of our audience. So we've lost now. But no, we did choose a set of brothers, and those brothers are the Coen brothers. So we're going to do a Coen brothers series. Now, when we looked over their filmography, we saw there were 17 feature films that they've done. And we also decided we don't want to watch 17 feature films from one director or set of directors.
Yeah.
In this case,
many of you will die of old age before getting through 17.
Yeah, especially since the average age of our listeners is 98. So
by design.
We're really trying to get that niche geriatric demographic nailed down.
For the sexy grandma demo.
But what we'd kind of decided, and of course Anderson was somewhat easy because he only had 7 films, but this is going to come up again, presumably as we move forward. And there are certainly directors out there that have even longer filmographies than the Coen brothers. And so
name one.
Do we want to do Alfred Hitchcock? Do we want to do...
Name 2. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Do we want to do months and months on the same director? And we decided no. So we said we're going to cap at 10. If any director has more than 10 films in their filmography, we're going to curate the list, find the 10 that we're going to watch, and then, of course, go through those 10 and try to cover, the sort of the panoply of their career with those 10 movies. But yeah, and so that's what we're going to start with the Coen brothers. Now,
that's a good way of cheating.
Yeah, well, we're all about cheating.
Yeah.
Much like, I guess we do.
Feel free to curate your own list, since we've done it to you. I mean, when you're cheating like that, it's the only way. Turnabout is fair play.
But one thing we didn't do offline, because why do it offline when you can do it?
I fucking made the list
live on a podcast.
I made it, but I didn't bring it.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's what you're going to say, right? We didn't actually talk about the 10 we're going to do.
So we have to settle on the 10, and we're going to do that live because, again, why do this when we can waste your time? Why do it offline? So of course, as Steve, spoiler alert, just told us that he made his list but didn't bring it. I did bring my list, so I guess we'll be using my list.
Let's go for it, Kyle. Hit me with your best shot. I'm going to veto something.
So yeah.
Even if it's the exact list I have, I'm still going to veto something just to be contrarian.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would expect no less. What I've done here, I'll basically give you my reasoning for my list, and then you can tell me why I am
wrong,
gravely mistaken. Okay, so I've decided to first off eliminate. There were 2 films of all the films they've made, of the 17 on the list. There were 2 that they had co-writers on, and so I decided those were easy to eliminate for not being quote unquote pure Coen.
Yeah.
The 2 films are The Hudsucker Proxy and Intolerable Cruelty.
Yeah.
So I'd say if we throw those out, those are the easiest ones to
Those
pick
were
up.
already thrown off on my list. So
okay.
We're good. Move forward.
Then
no Hudsucker for me.
Then I decided we could throw out True Grit because it's a remake of another film. So again, in a way, it feels like it's not so much original Coen, even though I know they did their take on it.
Yeah.
Because it was based on an existing property, it also didn't feel pure Coen. So I thought that was an easy way to.
Oh shit! Did you throw out No Country for Old Men then?
I did not, because it wasn't a movie first.
Right. Okay.
So
it's still based on another property.
You could, but it hadn't been done as a film, which I felt was a little different. Plus, it's also how can you throw out No Country for Old Men just because it's such a. I feel like it's
that's fair.
It's a classic. So
no True Grit
in a way that True Grit isn't. The other one that I eliminated. This was my easy eliminations. These first 4 was Lady Killers. Because I feel like it's widely considered lesser Coen.
Yeah.
I don't. It's like it's like sort of the inherent vice of the Coen Brothers films. I don't think it's anybody's favorite Coen Brother movie, or even in their top 5. So. Those are those were I felt like the easy eliminations. Then this is where it gets really hard, and I picked one. The first one I picked was Barton Fink. My rationale was simply that while I really like Barton Fink,
the first one you picked to eliminate.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
To eliminate of the hard eliminations, because we got to get rid of 7. Those first 4 I felt were the easy ones.
Okay, so no Barton Fink.
Barton Fink. My rationale here is that while I like the movie, I'm not dying to revisit it in the way that I want to revisit some of these other movies.
Okay.
So I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I'm fine with not seeing Barton Fink. Okay. I did really. Barton Fink's great, but again, we're gonna run into the PTA. Right.
Yeah, they're all. I mean, they're saying all these movies we're throwing out now are great movies. So but we still have to we have to pick something. So.
Okay, so no Barton Fink. What else you got?
A Serious Man.
Yeah, no, I'm good with not seeing that one.
Okay, and that's the same rationale for me. I like
that.
It
Just feels like Barton Fink, but like that they're in that same Barton Fink universe.
Yeah,
right, with A Serious Man.
Yeah. So same idea, just not necessarily the most rewatchable films. I think.
I wonder if had we grown up Jewish, if we would appreciate both Barton Fink.
Speak for yourself,
and A Serious
sir.
Man. You grew up. I thought you converted.
Maybe we probably would have a greater appreciation if that had been the case. But
okay, so what is?
So the final one that I threw out.
You better not say the one that I don't want you to say, Kyle.
Was Hail Caesar, simply on the basis that it's the newest one and probably the hardest for us to get a hold of.
Yeah.
So that was an easy decision. I have not yet seen it, and I really want to see it.
Yeah.
But for the purpose of the series,
have you seen all the other Coen Brothers movies?
Well, let's talk about as we go through the list.
Okay, sure.
So if you throw out those 7, then here's the list in the order which they were made, which is also the order which we will watch them. So starting with Blood Simple, which I have not seen.
Oh.
So looking forward to that.
Okay. I have seen it.
Okay.
Want me to tell you how it ends?
Yeah.
Simply, but with blood.
Well, And now there's no point in even watching it.
There we go.
Just
Okay,
skip
Barton
right
Fink's back on the menu.
Barton Fink will be our beginning film. So Blood Simple, followed by Raising Arizona, which is one of those films that I'm embarrassed to say I haven't seen.
What?
Because I know, it's like, here's the thing. I've almost watched Raising Arizona like 95 times. it literally has been like the movie when you're picking between two movies, with somebody, you're like, hey, let's check out Raising Arizona. We should, I always wanted to see that. Or we could watch,
Barton Fink.
The Matrix Revolutions.
Right.
And then somehow you end up watching The Matrix Revolutions.
For the 16th time.
Yeah, I don't even like this movie. Why am I watching it again?
I've never seen the first one. This doesn't make any fucking sense.
It didn't make any fucking sense if you had seen the first one. But yeah, really doesn't make sense. So Raising Arizona is number 2. Number 3, Miller's Crossing, which I have seen.
Yeah.
Number 4, Fargo, of course, an absolute classic.
Everyone's seen that.
5 is Lebowski.
Ja.
Again, same thing. 6, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which I've seen and is great. 7, The Man Who Wasn't There, which I've also seen. And that's one I'm looking forward to revisiting, because I feel like it is also considered lesser Coen Brothers, but I really liked it, and I think there were maybe some unplumbed depths there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Also, I have seen the Man Who Wasn't There, but it was once, and it was quite a while ago.
Right.
So I couldn't even. The only thing I really remember about The Man Who Wasn't There is the haircut scenes where they're just sort of doing different haircuts. So yeah, definitely interested in checking that one out again.
Yeah, that's basically the whole film. It's just like
it's just duck butts.
2-hour haircut. Yeah. Followed by No Country for Old Men. Obviously, the one that won them the Best Picture Oscar, and another classic. Then Burn After Reading, which is... have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I sure have, man. I've seen all these.
Yeah, as have I. And that's just a fun one, That's just a fun one to revisit.
It's just when you need a little Malkovich in your life.
Right. And it's a good palate cleanser for No Country, too, because No Country's a bit rough.
Yeah.
So you get a little levity here with Burn After Reading. And then finally, Inside Llewyn Davis, which I have not seen. So
that's the only one on the list I haven't seen. So that's cool. That's a good way to go out.
Yeah, so that's cool. And that's the list. So so next week we will be talking about Blood Simple. So check it out, and you can hear what we have to say about it.
You're in for a treat, Kyle.
And you can have your own thoughts too, but we will not be listening to them because presumably you don't have a podcast. Or you probably do.
If you do, tweet us though, and we still won't listen.
Yeah, tweet us.
But it'd be nice to have some activity on the Twitter account.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have more than, say, 5 followers, all of whom are related to me. So
at least there's 5.
Yeah. So anyway,
it'd be hard to get like a denial from your grandma.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I don't think so, sweetie.
Yeah. Listen, my Twitter feed is pretty full. A lot of Today Show updates. I can't really take on another person right now. So, yeah, at the Pod Couple, if you want to actually do that, real easy to do.
2 Ds.
Twitter is available on all platforms. It takes like 2 seconds to register for an account. Even if you don't even use it, you could still, sign up for an account and follow us really fast if you wanted to be super nice about it.
Yeah, if you want to like harass somebody on a YouTube channel, you could just do it with Twitter. You argue with Kyle all day. He'll argue back. He actually does that.
I will argue in 140 characters all day long. I will make the most of them. So that's that for the movies for our director's series. Excited to get back at it with some new blood next week. But
New Blood Simple. Nice, Kyle. I know you did that on purpose.
Well, can't get anything.
When you got it, you got it.
And you
got
like you got to smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, I can do that. I was just fidgeting. But now that you've brought it up, I feel like
obligated.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna take a short smoke break.
Time travel.
Right back with time travel, and through the magic of editing and or time travel,
we're
back.
in a dystopian future, nonetheless.
with another edition of Steve Teaches Kyle About Modern Music.
Yes, the long-awaited installment in which I reveal the mystery of last month and the common thread running through all the bands in order to talk about the band I'm going to tell you about right now. Now, Kyle, I feel
people are on tenterhooks right now, you realize?
Yeah, I got them. I'm ratcheting up that tension like a sexy lady.
And you are naked, too, right now,
well,
which is, a little uncomfortable, but I'm trying to...
do it for the Democratic Party.
Beat me to the punch again.
Come on, game out.
I will game out this election so hard.
I'm just cruising. So,
how great would it be if Ted Cruz was caught like in an airport bathroom blowing a dude?
I did see recently, as a bit of a digression from the music thing, but I saw recently a headline came out that said more Republican congressmen and senators have been caught in scandalous situations in restrooms than trans people doing anything. So maybe we should put that on the bathroom doors.
No Republican congressmen allowed in bathrooms.
So Kyle, I feel like I have been, as far as the music is concerned, pretty nice to you so far. I've given you stuff that, while it may not be your favorite, was something that you could enjoy on a certain level. And I've decided to break with that. This is the part where I really test you. This is probably going to be the hardest band so far that is, you stand a large chance of absolutely not liking this whatsoever. And
sounds great.
Yeah, ready? The common thread through all of the bands I played last month is that they were all produced and worked with a gentleman by the name of John Congleton, who was the Texas-based producer and a musician in his own right. He was the frontman, the lead singer and guitarist and lyricist for a band called The Paper Chase. Are you familiar with The Paper Chase?
Yes, I've heard. I had one of their albums at one point in time.
That's pretty good news, Kyle, because The Paper Chase is now broken up, but Congleton's new project, John Congleton and the Nighty, dropped on April 1st, and the album is called Until the Horror Goes. And that is my recommendation for you. The Paper Chase, if I could be in any band, if I was on a desert island and I had to pick 3 albums, I'd probably just pick 3 Paper Chase albums. I can listen to them anytime. They are a noise rock, sort of horror pop. It's very dark. It's very atonal a lot of the time, but it's super catchy. It's a bunch of layered melodies. It kicks ass. It's very frightening, and it makes you uncomfortable, and I absolutely love everything about The Paper Chase, and I absolutely love everything about this new album, Until the Horror Goes, by John Congleton and the Nighty. You can go to their Facebook page, and it will link you to a site where you can listen to the entire album from front to back on Spotify for free. So definitely you should buy it and support them if you like it. But if you just want to check out the whole thing, make sure and check that album out. It's very much like it's just such a stand-up classy thing for Congleton to do, because he easily could have just called this, this project The Paper Chase, since you see with a different drummer and a different bass player, whatever, he's making very much just the next Paper Chase album. And it's cool that he decided to change the name and sort of put that chapter of his life behind him. The 2 songs I would recommend that you start with to let you know, dear listener and dear Kyle, if this is going to be your jam, is song number 5, which is called Canaries in the Coal Mine.
I like the title already.
Yeah, it's great. One of the things about Congleton is not just his musicianship and the way that he plays guitar in a much different way than a lot of people do. He's really beats the hell out of it, but not in a Eddie Vedder shredding super fast way. He's just always like crazy bending strings and does all sorts of weird chords and plays all kinds of great melody lines underneath, when he's singing that are very difficult, and it's super impressive. Not to mention the fact that he's the only guitar player and he gets such a huge sound out of it. And the second, but yeah, the lyrics, I lost my play. I love this album so much I can't even talk. The lyrics, he's such a great lyricist. It's not just that he's such a great musician. His lyrics are always super, super dark and depressing, and it's a lot of times like what I imagine like Ted Cruz's journal. His, I love you like a lion loves its kill is like what I imagine Ted Cruz writes in his journal every night.
After he adds to his string of Zodiac kills.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So check that out. Canaries in the Coal Mine, start with that one. And Who Could Love You, Lucille is song number 9. And you do get to see, like I said, this is very similar to the Paper Chases stuff, but it does move the needle a little bit forward and sort of experiments with some different song stylings. And God damn it, it's so good. So that is your mission. Please check it out. And I'm very happy to hear that you had a Paper Chase album. Do you remember which one you had?
I do not.
Was it Now You Are One of Us?
That doesn't sound familiar.
Was it God Bless Your Black Heart?
Yes.
Ah, yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, they put out like 3 albums after that one, and they're all fantastic. But your assignment is this new, fresh album that just dropped until the horror goes. John Congleton and the Nighty. You're welcome.
Well, thank you, sir. And I will check it out. Unlike last week's
3 weeks ago?
3 weeks ago. last podcast's band, which I did not listen to, even though I had 3 weeks to do so. And
you had them working man blues.
Well, that's part of it. Although I have to say that the first week I literally just was too busy to work it in, or kind of got sidetracked. But after that, I actually purposely didn't listen to it because I thought it would be funnier if the first time you actually read one of the books I recommended, I didn't listen to your music, since I've listened to all the music up to this point and you've read none of the books.
Yeah, how did you count on me to actually read the book?
Well, no, this is I knew, like, after the first week, you told me you read the book.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, that works out good because I didn't listen to the song, so that'll be funny. And then we ruined it by not doing the podcast, but I decided to keep the joke alive, even though now I'm over-explaining the joke, which is the death of all jokes. So kind of, stepped in it. But anyway, this is a long way around of saying that I didn't listen to the music, so I have no thoughts on it. However, Steve did actually read a book this time. After I reminded him that books are a thing for the 7th time, it finally stuck.
Lucky number 7.
And he checked out A Long Way Down. And I would like to hear your thoughts on it before I go into this week's reminder.
It's interesting because I had the book for a couple days, and then I just sort of, I did what I normally do, which is not read. And then I had to be up in the morning, which meant that I had to go to bed and sort of, I had to try to fix my schedule, or else I would have been up for like 24 hours and whatever. So I was like, I know what people do in order to fall asleep. They read books, is no problem. So I figured I'd set myself an hour of reading and then be able to fall asleep. And what happened instead is that I basically read the whole book. I really, really enjoyed it.
It's that kind of book.
Yeah, it is that kind of book. It grabs on right away, and it's really interesting how masterfully Hornby can write in 4 separate voices.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the thing that sells the book, is having like the sort of the same event described by the different characters who all feel interesting and unique, and they're all funny in very specific ways. And it was fantastic. Not only that, but just the idea of taking sort of, a suicide attempt to a comical place.
Right.
But not to like a farcical place. It's very earnestly dealt with and discussed, and it just happens to be, very funny as well. And still, there are very emotional moments in the book. So, look, if I can read it, anybody can read it. 'Cause I don't read books. And I really, really enjoyed it.
How did it make you feel in retrospect about the film?
Well, I had sort of forgotten the film. Like, it was a very forgettable film.
Yeah, absolutely.
So after I read the book, it was hard for me to remember what was so different. 'Cause it did seem like, as I'm reading the book, I'm like, yeah, this happens in the movie. Yeah. But it does seem like why weren't they able to make a good movie?
Yeah.
Out of it. Like, the book was so good. It seems like they're fucking lobbing a softball. Like, here, this book's hilarious and poignant. Go make a movie out of it. And then somehow they blew it.
Yeah. Well, I think the playbook for a Hornby adaptation is just stick to the text as much as possible.
Right.
Because it's already so, the dialogue is so good and the writing is so funny that you want to keep as much of that as you can in a film. And that was the theme, I think, there were numerous mistakes made, I think, in the adaptation of this film.
Yeah, one of which that really stuck out, even though I don't remember the film that well. I feel like the character of the American that was Giovanni Ribisi, who's a great actor.
He actually, it's not Giovanni Ribisi.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's actually it's actually
it's
Jesse Pinkman.
Giovanni Ribisi. Oh, Aaron Paul.
Yeah, Aaron Paul.
Okay, well, they're like the same guy. Okay, so Aaron Paul. Okay, he's a great actor. Yeah, it seems like in the movie he is almost not like, the book really fleshes him out, and in the movie he's just kind of there.
Yeah,
he has that one secret that gets revealed,
right?
And then that's his whole purpose in the movie, right. And then to be like, for them to couple off. Because some exec was like, oh, you guys have to be a couple in the end, which did not happen in the book.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
Exactly. So anyway, all right, well, we won't spend too much time on last podcast's book, but I'm glad you read it. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and hopefully some of our listeners...
And that's my one book for the year. I'm out.
All right, well, you don't think I can convince you with one more here? I
kind of doubt it.
Before December 31st? All right, well, I'll do my best. So the book for this week is a book called Ghettoside by...
I love it. Can I borrow that?
Can you borrow my Kindle?
Yeah. No, well, yeah, and your wallet, and your wedding ring.
Are you planning to stop by a pawn shop or?
No, I just sometimes Google pawn shops, Kyle. Stop looking at my phone.
Now you got your fancy new phone, you can Google pawn shops.
Bring my phone right to a pawn shop.
Sorry, Case. But anyway, this book is by Janet Levoy, and it is a great piece of investigative journalism, like really long form, embedded, years-long journalism, where she followed around it was kind of embedded with and followed around these homicide detectives in basically in South Central LA, and
West Coast Wire.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. It's, there's a book by David Simon called Homicide, which he definitely used a lot of his experiences as a reporter, and in writing that book, they ended up on the screen in both Homicide: Life on the Street, which was a show he did before The Wire, and then, of course, The Wire, which let him take a lot of that stuff further. But anyway, so it does have some of the feel of that book, which I've also read and which is also good. Maybe I will recommend it on a future episode, but for now we're going to talk about Ghettoside, which basically deals with, as you can imagine, the situation in South Central Los Angeles, and the most striking situation there, which is the incredible amount of murders which happen within the Black community there, numbers which are just staggeringly high compared to not just the rest of the country, but even the other pockets of within the LA area that are in a similar economic situation, whether you're talking about Latinos or other groups that are in similar economic circumstances, it's so much higher in the Black community. And obviously the book explores some of the reasons why that is, and some of the solutions. And it jumps around to a lot of different things. I mean, the framework for the book, basically the clothesline that everything hangs on, is this one particular murder case, and it kind of follows it from the murder all the way through the investigation and the trial and everything. But that's just kind of the clothesline, and it uses that structure to build around that structure all the other things that are happening in the community and with the police department and with the politics of that, and with dealing with the history of LA and all these other interesting pieces that are woven into this narrative. I mean, of course, it's a nonfiction book, but written in a narrative style. And and anyway, it's so definitely it's a great read. I mean, it's made a lot of people's like best of year lists last year, I think. So you may have already heard about it, but anyway, as is our tradition, I'm going to read a bit from it. And this is a piece that I think speaks to some of the philosophical underpinnings of this book, and what really emerges from this author's experience is this sense of that the underlying philosophical problem here is really rooted in the state not effectively asserting its monopoly on violence in this community and all the repercussions of that. And this is certainly not unique in human history, and that's sort of what this passage deals with. So without further ado, from antiquity, the men fighting problem, men killing one another to settle disputes or exact revenge in the absence of a trusted legal authority, has confounded thinking people. It would be too sweeping to assert that lawless peoples are all alike, but across historic and cultural settings there appears a common palette of adaptations to lawlessness. Loose talk and rumors are particular aggravators. Canadian Inuits fought over chronic lying, the Sudanese over volatile conversation, and Jim Crow blacks over gossip and whispering. Revenge and jealousy murders are standard. So are reprisals against snitches who serve a distrusted state, touts kneecapped in Northern Ireland, informants necklaced in South Africa. Gangs that declare an order-keeping role, like the murderous neighborhood watches of Ghana, are another sure sign that a vacuum of legitimate authority has been filled by extra-legal violence. So is the habit of grabbing one's friends from police, as people do in South African townships. Witnesses in such contexts are scared. Men act touchy. They fixate on honor and respect, a result of lawlessness, not a cause. Petty quarrels grow lethal and may mask deeper antagonisms. And arson, for some reason, gets a starring role in Tsarist Russia, gold rush settlements in Alaska, and the sharecropping regions of the South. In the dim early stirrings of civilization, many scholars believe law itself was developed as a response to legal self-help, people's desire to settle their own scores. Rough justice slowly gave way to organized state monopolies on violence. The low homicide rates of some modern democracies are, perhaps, an aberration in human history. They were built, as the scholar Eric Monconen said, not by any formal act, but by a much longer developmental process, whereby individuals willingly give up their implicit power to the state. There are many challenges to this viewpoint, and many variations on it, but history shows us that lawlessness is its own kind of order. Murder outbreaks seen this way are more than just the proliferation of discrete crimes. They are part of a whole system of interactions determined by the absence of law. European history offers a panoply of rough justice systems based on personal vengeance, blood feuds, shaming rituals, and sundry forms of retributive and clan violence. Frequent homicide was part of this picture. High homicide rates have also been recorded among hunter-gatherer peoples, such as the Kung of the Kalahari, and other societies without elaborate legal structures. So anyway, that's you kind of get the idea there where it's going, and I think that there is definitely something to that, and you see it much more as the book proceeds. They really are able to underline that theme with the idea that, if it's because they're following, of course, a homicide department, and with homicide department, you're investigating killings that have already happened, and to some degree, you might be like, oh, well, would be nice if we could prevent these things, but the real argument is that investigating the homicides that happen does prevent homicides, because what happens if you don't have a trusted authority that can step in and that people can trust to serve justice in these situations, then they will seek it themselves. So you're essentially short-circuiting a cycle of violence by having an effective homicide department or effective homicide investigations. And that's absolutely what they don't have in South Central Los Angeles. And of course there is a sense, certainly among a lot of the denizens of these areas, that the police look at it as well. It's just another black person being killed, and so they don't try that hard. That may not be 100% fair, but there certainly is, that certainly plays into it to some degree. And there's also, it's a reinforcing cycle to some degree because of course the police aren't trusted, and there's certainly a long history of racism that plays into that. But when the police aren't trusted, then the people are not cooperative, and of course there becomes a situation where witnesses are afraid, and the idea of snitching becomes a badge of shame or whatever. And so that makes it much harder for the police to do their job, and makes it much more frustrating for them to investigate, which a lot of times means they just don't end up trying as hard or pushing through as aggressively, because they're not getting the cooperation, which means the murders are less likely to get solved, and then leads to reprisals in the community, and so on and so forth. So it's all these things tie into each other is the point. Like many things, you have a lot of moving parts that are all interrelated, and it's much more complex than maybe meets the eye at first glance. So I mean, the real strong argument from the book is that you have to have, there's a couple of detectives in particular that highlight that just push through all the bullshit, and they say this is too important. Murder is too important to just treat like, it's any other job. And you have to, whatever, you're not getting cooperation, you just have to try harder until you get somebody who will. You have to move a witness around 5 times or whatever, but you do what you have to do to make the case and to close these murder cases. And the other thing that's really interesting that comes out of it for me is seeing the variation in quality, which makes perfect sense, because being a cop or a homicide detective, whatever, I'm sure is just like any other job that thousands of other people do, that some people are really good and some people are really incompetent, and there's a lot of people in the middle. But it seems sucky in particular that that's the case with homicide detectives, right? Because it's like if you're in IT and you're incompetent, then someone's email doesn't work for the day, and that sucks for them. It's annoying. But if you're a homicide detective and you're incompetent and someone doesn't get justice for their child being killed,
right,
that's a lot worse.
Right, or somebody innocent goes to jail.
Right. Like right. Stephen Avery.
Yeah, exactly.
In our first podcast callback.
Lawlessness. What can you say?
I was waiting for it. Still funny. Yeah. So what do you think, Steve? Does that make you want to run out and read Ghettoside by Janet Levoy?
How long is it?
Like 500 pages.
Oh, yeah, dude. I got that. I'll read everything.
Knock it out tonight.
I'm just addicted now.
This
Big boner disease. That's what I should have said instead of Tourette's is the best disease earlier. Big boner disease.
Did that just occur to you apropos of nothing? Or because you have a big boner for books?
Yeah, I have a big reading boner. Boner fly in my pants. Okay.
You didn't want to sing, but... People just kept telling you you have the voice of an angel.
I'll just Paul Ryan it.
All right, Paul Ryaning it. I think that's a good description of this podcast, and it's also a good note on which to go out.
This supersized podcast.
Yeah, this is the longest yet, I'm pretty sure, but we know that all the listeners have been jonesing for it, so we decided to give you a nice big fat fix, and hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week talking about Blood Simple and, TV, politics, all the usual shit. So tune in, and we will see you then
Time travel.
The Time Traveling Podcast.